Perfect. Hello, everyone. It's episode 327 of the official podcast. Today, we're joined by a very special repeat guest. He's been here before. This is a man who's done exceptional hard-hitting journalism over here in Australia. He's drawn the ire of politicians and gambling corporations alike. He's pretty much public enemy number one at this point. You probably know him by now because Charlie's done a few videos on him. He goes by the alias FriendlyJordies to avoid identification. Jordan, how's it going, man? Sorry to dox you like that.
Like 10 years ruined.
Yeah. How's it going, man? How you going?
Yeah, it's going very well. Thank you, boys, for having me back.
No, our pleasure. All it takes to get you back is a firebombing, it appears. Then we're like, okay, that's interesting enough. Let's bring you back on.
Yeah, I'm personally just happy you're still around to come back, honestly, after everything that's happened.
Yeah.
You know what I'm happy about, though, Charlie? Honestly. I've got to thank you so much for doing that video, because it was the first time in 10 years that I saw a piece of media about me and was like, holy hell, I'm not being shat on.
That's incomprehensible to me as well. Like, I couldn't imagine the work you do and then having complete radio silence in your area. That is so fucked. That whole situation is beyond, like, corrupt. It's so blatant, too. And this was a question I asked Stream, but I guess I'll just off-rip ask you because I'm very curious. In your community, I imagine most of, the average person is very supportive of you, right?
If I left my house, I'd probably have a better indication, but yeah, I think so. I'm getting the general sense that this is exactly what actually, when this all started really kicking in, my lawyer started pointing out, which was, you look at the headlines and every day it's just like, I don't know, FriendlyJordies in racist tirade, something like that. And then you look at all the comments at the bottom and it's all these tradies just being like, yeah, give it to him, Jordies. And I just don't look at the comments and I just look at the headline and I'm just like, oh God, it's happening again.
I have to imagine, because what you provide is completely invaluable, to a community. I couldn't imagine a normal person seeing those headlines and then actually looking at it and being like, wow, this is a bad guy. Because, if you just look at the headlines, you look like a fucking menace. But anyone that takes even a second beyond that, it's like, wow, this guy is a hero. So I was curious if you've seen it in your day-to-day life where there's this huge disconnect between, the media portrayal of you and what people, in your immediate area view you as.
The thing is, though, you would imagine that, I don't know if you guys have experienced this. Has anyone ever just walked up to you in the street and was just like, hey, you're moist critical? Just to let you know, I fucking hate you. All right, have a good day, and then just leave. No one ever does that, right? It's only ever fans that come up, surely.
Yeah, I feel like if they were going to do that whole, the hate route, you've got, they come up to you to display their hatred of you, you've got a bigger problem. That's not, a situation that's going to be, pleasantly exchanged, where they just tell you that they hate you.
Yeah, I think there's Reddit for that. Normally, I think when people just come up to you, they're usually very complimentary. But yeah, I think that is the massive thing that's been a huge shift, and I'm sure it's just happening globally. But I think that most people are pretty savvy about how the press operates these days. I don't think that
people our age, yeah. People our age, maybe. I have no hope for the older generations, people in their probably 40s beyond. Maybe this is a thing because you're in the city and I'm in a retirement village, basically. But everyone around here is pretty heavily indoctrinated by the media, I would say. Pretty engaged with the media.
They could say the same for the kids.
All right, yeah, fair. That actually does sound about right. But it was honestly incredible to me that you, Charlie, someone who's just on the other side of the planet, can just pick it up, look at the story, and then just from my point of view anyway, just get it. That's phenomenal. I'm just not used to it, I guess. Man. That's it. Yeah, well, thanks, man. But yeah, it was just it really was this weird moment of, oh, there's actual normal, rational human beings in the world that can look beyond the headline.
In Florida,
So,
of all
yeah.
places as well, which is fucking
Hey,
nuts.
man, I'm telling you, Florida, give us 5 to 6 years. We're going to be breeding super geniuses down here. We're only getting smarter.
Deal with that. What?
It's
Yeah.
because all the dumb people are dying off in the swamps from alligator
Hey,
attacks
hey,
or bath salt related incidents.
as soon as bath salts like stop, taking its foothold on the youth, we are going to really pop off. We're going to be the next evolution.
Yeah,
coming.
I believe it. Sydney's a shithole, right? Jordies, we were talking about this before the podcast started. Can you give me an idea as someone who's never ventured outside? I've been to Sydney. I've been in the CBD as a tourist, I would say. Someone who's like picked and chosen the best spots of Sydney to kind of, enjoy. But as someone who lives there, what's the daily situation like there? Well, at least when you could also go outside. Like, is it as crime riddled as you've led me to believe through your content?
No, it's not like. Look, actually, this is a very interesting point about Sydney. There is a book that I can't remember the name of, but it was this journalist that just goes around and he documents organised crime webs across the planet. And he was saying Sydney is the best place on planet Earth to do organised crime. Now,
Oh, it's a paradise then.
yeah. If
Well,
you're
why are you
part
so
of one of
negative
those
about it?
construction businesses, because I'm not in on the scheme. That's why. It's annoying.
Yeah, this just sounds like jealousy. That's your entire YouTube content now in my brain. It's just jealousy.
He didn't get in with the organized crime mob, so now he's bitter about
That's the
it.
only reason he's making all of his videos. Just he wants an action, but he won't get it.
Firebomb my house, will ya? I'll wait until I really get in the mix here.
I can't believe that that's not even an option, though. Like, you could have tried bribing first. Did you have to go there? Just
Yeah,
see
you were
if I
just
would've
so
sold out.
unlikable that bribing didn't even cross their brain.
That's such a good point. Yeah, they could have started with like a branch like, hey, how does money sound? But instead it's right to fucking terrorism.
Right, so actually, have we really given context for like the elements surrounding the firebombing? Like, FriendlyJordies, Jordan here, he's basically like a political online journalist over here in Australia, and he's done some, like, as Charlie said, some terrific pieces about a whole bunch of different elements in Australia that are basically corrupt, from like the New South Wales government, gambling corporations like Clubs New South Wales, even like the military and military crimes and stuff like that. So there's a lot of people who I think it's fair to say dislike Jordan, FriendlyJordies here. So earlier it was this year, right? Still this year?
No, it was last year. I keep forgetting we're in 2023 as well.
Time is a foreign concept. But recently, Jordan's house was firebombed, essentially. So someone tried to torch him alive. Luckily, Jordan was not there at the time.
Yeah, because I forgot my house keys. That's why.
Yeah, that is exceedingly lucky. I mean, unlucky that your house got burnt to a crisp, but still, I like to look at the silver linings and things. And you not being there is probably a pretty good one. So yeah, he got firebombed. Like, do you remember when you found out? Is it like a memory that's printed in your brain?
Yeah. I usually just wake up at the time that it's only for unemployed people and YouTubers, isn't it? Waking up at 11 a.m.
Yeah.
That's usually the time that I wake, right? I wake up, there's 50 messages on my phone. 50 messages. Because, like, dude, and I've got that very divorced dad life as well. I sleep in my office a lot.
Yeah.
And so I was there. Then Christo, my producer, was just slamming on the door. And I was just like, fuck, you're keen to film today. And I open it up. And then he says, oh, yeah, awfully sorry about your house burning down. That's how I found out.
Well, that's a pretty jovial way of finding out. Did he just assume that you already knew?
Yeah. Yeah.
Fair enough.
And both of us, our eyes lit up, and then we thought, wow, that's better than doing another KFC review. I think that'll get more views, and we're all happy about it, and happy days. That was pretty. And then I opened up my email, just messages, blah blah blah. Jordan's house firebombed. Then went to the press, and then the press's tagline the entire day was, "It's a wonder it took so long for this to happen."
Well, it's not just that. You've left out like what I find to be one of the most heinous things that happened that day. When this happened, they made sure to print his fucking address. In the press,
Yeah.
they printed his goddamn
Yeah.
address, literally doxing him.
It's a public interest. That fire could have spread. The people needed to know to avoid that address.
Well, just
right?
to clear up any confusion, then, Jordies, what's your current address, just so we're sure?
Yeah, we need to get to know you better.
Well, true journalistic duty would have been a headline saying, "Don't worry, everyone, he's safe at his office at so-and-so street."
Yeah, where's the hard digging journalism?
You know what the
Come on.
amazing thing was? It wasn't just the address, but also the fact that 7 News was saying, "FriendlyJordies, who lives in this house in Bondi, around in this bedroom here," and then points an arrow, just saying like they missed the first time by firebombing the neighbor.
By
You
cloth.
went for the front door, but he sleeps in the back, guys. So
Usually
if you want
spends
to
most
do
of
it
his time
again,
right.
We were
here.
able to get a clear sight line by climbing this tree over here.
Easiest access point right here through this window.
It was incredible. Do you remember those old documentaries that used to be on like the Discovery Channel or something, where they'd just be like, I don't know, talking about America's tough anti-terrorism regime, making sure that freight trains can't be blown up. And then they'd point out things just being like, except this weak spot in Ohio, right here. They do that stuff.
Yeah.
It's a staple of theirs. I don't know why. Yeah, it was incredible. But I truly, that was just remarkable. I went to the press council to complain about it, and as usual, they just told me to fuck off. But I thought it was worth a try.
So you've individually pinpointed a whole bunch of suspects, let's say. But I can't help but notice you didn't pinpoint journalists. What if they firebombed you for the content? I'm not ruling it out, man.
I don't know, man. It's just like they seem extremely precious when I criticize their work. I don't think they've got it in them. You know that guy. You Yanks wouldn't know this guy, but Jackson, do you know Spanion here?
I keep telling you, I don't watch Australian content other than you.
Yeah,
There's no
never
way I would
mind.
know.
Yeah, but it's just he's
You're
like a
talking to
crim.
yourself. He's
Sorry,
what?
but yeah, he's a crim. And he got out of jail after being in jail for 17 years or whatever. And now he's probably one of the biggest YouTubers in Australia.
Spaniard?
And he always said something that really, it's like, it really shows the difference in the mentality of somebody who lives in the underworld and breathes it. He was saying, all these people online, they're always telling me, "Oh, you're not tough. I could beat you in a fight. I've seen you do MMA. You're not that good at it." I was like, "Bruh, yeah, let's go fight. But I'm just going to stab you, you know? Like, can you stab me? Can you rip my guts out with a knife? It's a different level, bro." You know, this... like, it's that level.
Yeah.
The average person is always just thinking, "Oh, okay, I'll just tit for tat and all this kind of stuff." But there's other people out there that when you do a video on them, they don't respond in a YouTube beef. They burn your house down.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like
Especially when you get
yeah.
into the level of like organized crime and people
Yeah.
whose entire lives are based off organized crime.
Just
But-
out
Yeah.
of curiosity, does he post that content on YouTube where he's like, "Oh, you think you can beat me in a fight? I'll rip your fucking guts out"?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Man,
Holy shit, that's
I've
hard.
got a YouTube rabbit hole for you, my friend. That guy. And also, this is the other thing as well. I think it's just because we're like a country of convicts, but like we immediately were just like, that's a national hero. You know?
Wow.
Oh, so this guy's well liked. He's not like a villain.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, but like, you know this about Australia, right? I don't know. Yeah, like one of our biggest heroes in Australia is Ned Kelly.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
he's a bank robber. Who's another one? We've got, Chopper Reed.
Yeah,
Who's just
yeah,
another
you're
mob
right.
underworld guy. Like
You're right.
we love crims. We
Yeah,
love
we do.
them.
Yeah, even like
Is that-
the bikey gangs and stuff aren't looked
Bikey.
at too badly. Yeah, I know it's
You guys are so fucking adorable. You love crims from your bikey gangs.
Wait, no, wait. Do you actually call them bikey gangs?
Yeah.
Oh fuck,
Charlie, you watch their videos. They call fucking slot machines pokies.
Yeah, but I mean, I can almost rationalize that bikey is like longer than just saying biker. You could just say biker gang.
But that's how much we like the bikies. We give them cute little names. They're like
Oh my god,
cute little
Oh,
chihuahuas,
boy.
basically.
that is actually adorable. Holy
You
shit.
guys are so cute. This is so harmless.
Yeah, but
Is that a thing in America though? Like,
Yeah, it is. They don't stop
criminals-
giving me shit about this.
Rightfully so.
Yeah, they hate the Australian lexicon.
Oh no, not the
hate it. It's
lexicon.
adorable.
Just a thing of like, like a mafia bosses and stuff from back in the day looked upon with pride and like,
Yes.
he built a children's hospital. So
Oh
it
yeah,
was a
yeah,
bit
yeah.
of a-
We idolize gangsters as just super cool and super badass.
Yeah, but I think Jordies is talking about like on an individual level, right? Not just like gangster as a term or like
concept.
an attitude. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, are
what's
they
his name?
individual?
Al Capone was a
Yeah,
huge
actually, yeah, Al Capone's a
folklore
good
hero.
example.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Al Capone
Oh,
was
so he's a folklore hero.
yeah.
Pretty much.
But he was a really
That's-
horrible man who did terrible things and was a straight up gangster. But amongst the people, at least, not everyone, but there was a really strong image of, he's just a cool guy going around the law, doing what he wants, helping the community.
Here's a good example. What about Jerry Seinfeld? He's loved.
What?
He's not a mobster or anything, but his wife was like what? His wife was like not a wife, but he had a girlfriend who was like 17 when he was like 50, right?
Uh-huh.
I don't
Did
know.
he?
Yeah,
Jerry
I don't know.
Seinfeld.
And
Yeah, you guys don't know that? What do you mean and? He's a criminal and people love him, right?
well, let's get a
he's not
stronger
criminal.
example of that same concept. Leonardo DiCaprio is super
He
old.
doesn't bang 17-year-olds. He's respectable enough to go 18 and above, I think.
True, but it's the same thing where he's super old and has a super young girlfriend, but like he's idolized and everyone loves him. I don't know.
I mean, not really. I feel like people give Leonardo DiCaprio more shit than they ever gave Jerry Seinfeld.
I don't think that's remotely true. Does anyone
I
else
think
want to
Jackson's
weigh in?
absolutely right on that. DiCaprio gets dunked on all the time on
Way
Twitter because
more. Way more
because he
shit.
dates 20-year-olds.
Okay, that's
Much
fair.
more
Whereas
shit. Not even 20-year-olds. They
Jerry's-
give him shit when he dates like 22-year-old supermodels. And it's always this bitter, resentful female audience in the replies. And it's like, you have to pick. Like, you can't have this in-between age range of women where they're like 18 to 25 and they're technically
They're
adults,
infants.
but you're also acting as if they're like literal infants. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, I'll go with that. I was thinking more in terms of in general. I would think Jerry Seinfeld in general gets shit on more.
I don't see anyone shit on Jerry Seinfeld, I'll tell you right now. I haven't seen it.
I could be completely wrong. That's fine.
Plus, to be fair, this is I guess this is like white collar crime. It's not really like mobster stuff, really. If he
Well, if he was a mobster, people would love him for
White-collar
it.
crime.
They'd praise it.
Yeah. Definitely. That's something that I've talked about on the podcast before. Is like, I feel like murder in general isn't looked upon like, I don't know, negatively enough. Like people kind of like idolize murderers a lot of the times, which is super weird to me.
That is weird.
Yeah. I don't get why that should be like the absolute worst thing you could possibly do to another person. You're snuffing out a life, right? It's like you can't get much worse than that. But like then there's like people rationalize murder a lot. Like, well, he didn't mean it, or well, it was an accident, right? Or well, he's good now. It's like you murdered someone.
Or well,
Well, it
he
depends
was
on
wronged.
the murder. It depends on the murder. Like, there's that video,
Well,
that famous video of the dad like shooting a guy at the airport who was molesting his son, and that guy didn't even
Yeah, I
serve
mean, it's
a single
hard
day
to
in
argue
prison,
about
as far
that.
as I can remember. But then you have people like, you know, that famous cartel hitman who's like going around bragging how he used to be either Pablo Escobar's or like El Chapo's hitman. He's bragging like, yeah, I killed 57 people. It's like, okay, I mean, why are we giving this scumbag interviews? Just fucking kill him.
It's
But
probably
that's-
because since
It's interesting,
murder is
that's
such
it.
a straightforward crime, it's very rationalizable. So, you have a lot of circumstances where you could say, well, yeah, I'd kill him too. I'd commit murder. Yeah, that guy deserved to die.
Yeah, I would actually think that rape is in many instances a far greater offense to a human being. I mean, you have to also keep in mind Hollywood this shit was so normal for them, especially back in the day. I remember rape. Just having sex with minors.
Right.
Remember Roman Polanski, the guy who ass fucked the 13-year-olds?
Yeah.
He received a standing ovation when he was literally on the run and he couldn't accept an award. The people all the Hollywood celebrities in the room stood up and gave him a standing ovation. Back in the day.
He made a good movie, right? What did he make?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you what he won for.
Jackson is making a strong point. He did earn the standing ovation.
But Kaya,
You can murder someone and get away with it.
Kaya's example also even throws fire into that same argument, because if you have people who say, yeah, I murdered that person, you have a whole narrative around it that can explain it. But if someone says, yeah, I raped that person, it's like, is there really a circumstance where that's the right course of action?
Yeah, no.
That's a really good point, yeah.
You can't rationalize it at all.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised.
Wait,
I'm talking in general,
actor,
though, on the whole.
Another actor who got away with murder is Matthew Broderick, right? And that was pretty recent.
That was a long time ago. Is that the one where he killed 2 people in a car accident?
Yeah,
was drunk driving.
That was a long time ago. That was a very long
They
time
did
ago.
die. They absolutely died. He murdered 2 people. And got
in a
away
car
with it.
accident. And I think it was in the 90s.
Technically, unless he
87,
intended to drive into them like an assassin, that's not murder.
That's manslaughter, which is
I
funny
would
because that
argue-
sounds so much worse than murder.
I would argue that getting behind the wheel drunk is kind of like murder. I don't think it's an accident in that case. You're putting yourself in a position where that happens, right?
Yeah, you could make that argument. I agree.
Where were we, Jordan?
Ethics of murder.
Famous mobsters.
That's what we're discussing here, just being like, yeah, I could kill a guy. Was that the cheers?
Yeah, Jordan's like backing out of the room slowly. He's like, I don't want to get caught up in this.
It was very interesting, though. I didn't realize that Jerry Seinfeld was controversial at all. I think it's just because I live in his peak time. My entire life is the 90s. I can't believe I'm a YouTuber. It's just like I read newspapers all day. So yeah, that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, YouTubers would never be able to get away with the stuff that Jerry Seinfeld and Matthew Broderick pulled. I don't think.
Well, actually,
you can't. Go ahead. I don't know. I was just going to say that you can't get away with a quote-unquote bad take these days. Like, that's enough to destroy your life.
No,
technically it gets you firebombed.
He'll get way more shit for his old show Seinfeld being offensive than he ever will for like dating minors.
That's completely true. Yeah. Completely fucking true.
Well, yeah, 100%. People know. Did none of you know about Jerry Seinfeld dating that 17-year-old? Was it just me?
Nay.
Yeah, again, I did,
I
but
didn't know that.
It's not something that springs to your mind at the top of your head because, again, he gets like zero shit for this.
Well, I don't know. He's the first thing I thought of when you started talking about organized crime and mobsters. So I don't know.
It's a very wholesome thing, though, isn't it? Like, it's just like, yeah, Australia's national heroes. Ned Kelly, this gangster from Melbourne that used to chop people up and like, dissolve them in lime. And then in America, it's like, well, we've got badasses too. Jerry Seinfeld dated much younger himself.
Well, to be fair, that was an Australian's take on the situation. That was my insertion.
What do you think? You think murder's cool? Check out this guy. He doesn't play by the rules. He did crack.
Andrew did have a good one with Al Capone. I think that is a pretty
another
applicable.
one I thought of from a different culture, but the same idea is how it's just a widespread thing. The Yakuza, in general, are seen as cool badasses who don't play by the rules. They have an entire long-running video game series that's super high-selling in both the West and in Japan that just shows nothing but how they help the community and they beat up thugs and they do the right thing, and in real life they're fucking human traffickers and perform a whole lot of horrible things.
Do they get royalties from the game? Like for licensing their name or something. Funny.
I think the idea
is Yakuza a term?
Huh?
Yeah, Yakuza is the name of the gang.
It's just a term. Oh, is it? Wait, so
Yeah, but is it like
do
a-
they own the name, or is it just a term? Is
Yeah,
it like
is it
saying
trademarked?
It's just yeah. Could they copyright it and make fucking bank off of it? It's just a name like gangster. It's the same kind of idea.
Okay.
But I think the idea of criminals being romanticized or portrayed as superheroes is not an uncommon idea in a ton of cultures. It's just
No, you're right.
it just is.
I'll tell you
Why?
what. Well, like,
Why?
okay,
What-
look. To be fair to Ned Kelly, he kind of was a Robin Hood. If you guys have ever seen him, he's the guy that has the tin
Bucket head,
helmet, bucket head thing on his head. You might have seen him. I don't know. So that's why he has it. And I was thinking that might be. I don't know too much about the Yakuza, and maybe I am just falling for this video games propaganda. But I think back in the day, kind of like in Reconstruction times and before, were they sort of like a community police when government services weren't really there? Because that's sort of how the mafia started, right? It was a bit just like officials
what,
just
like,
do not help the
every
community at
organization
all.
claims.
Very often it's not entirely untrue. Very often the organized crime is how you get around what people consider unfair governing. For example, the mafia gained a shitload of power during Prohibition because it was like, oh, the government says we can't have alcohol, and the mafia says, here's your alcohol, and I wonder which one people are going to like more. The Yakuza, from my very limited knowledge just on Wikipedia and shit, were very active during the Reconstruction after the major earthquake. And possibly the tsunami as well, because after those things, the government would go, okay, let's pass order number 672 to rebuild this road. Oh, does the first house agree to do this? But the second house is lenient because it might cost too much, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, while they were arguing, the Yakuza were out there building the fucking road. There you go. You need a road.
Yeah, but it's mostly PR because every crime organization does
Right.
this. ISIS claims the same thing, that they keep the local law and help people. So do the cartels. Remember how charitable Pablo Escobar was, to the tune of millions and millions, but he was also bombing planes.
I don't think it's one way or the other. I'm not saying, oh, the Yakuza and the gangsters are Robin Hood and they really do more than the government, nor is it they're the worst fucking, like, pure malicious organization ever. It's all just an organization. There's bad parts of it, good parts of it, and probably with these, bad parts outweigh for sure, but it's not to completely dismiss that they do provide a service to the community.
I wish our gangsters survived as service. I think all ours do is just make ice and make apartments cost a lot of money.
Yeah, you're not wrong. We need to go back to the days of having good role models in our villains or in our criminals.
Yeah,
We
we
need
Or
need
at
that
least can you
crime
get
rate
you
to be
back to the
nicer.
days of being really fat and wearing a white suit and sitting in an old-time mum and pup spaghetti house? Just in the corner, like something classy like that. I'm sick of them always flat. This is the other thing as well. When there's, like what I was just saying to you guys then, there seems to be a lot of gangsters down here, and I'm not going to say their names because I'm in enough trouble, but they're trying to be YouTubers. They're trying to be like gangster rappers, and they're coming up on stage. Like they want the fame, and it's just like, this is cheap, guys. You should be the guy with the little hat on that's like, don't film me, That guy, he had some dignity.
Yeah,
It's kind of changed now.
The guy who
That's kind of like
sits-
exported from America, right? Like the SoundCloud rapping scene and stuff like that. I feel like that comes from America.
I don't
Yeah,
think
they want
so
that.
at all.
Where does it come from then?
I
I
don't
it
think
definitely comes from you.
I don't think your
You specifically.
Australian mobster YouTubers are coming from SoundCloud rappers in America.
Well, no, it's the
It's all your fault, guys.
It's the scene. It's what the scene promotes. Well, I guess SoundCloud rapping itself came from like rapping in general. Rapping, I'm not trying to say rapping is bad or anything like that. I like hip hop and stuff, but like it does kind of like promote that scene, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why you're acting as if this is controversial to say. Yeah, most of it fucking sucks, and a lot of it is just, I killed this
Well, I didn't say
person,
that.
and I fucked this bitch, I raped this hoe, I make money as a gangbanger, and yeah. But I don't think you can blame that for, like, I don't know, thugs in Germany shanking someone and mugging them.
Why? Everyone watches American media and stuff. It's like the biggest.
But it's
influence
not
on
an
culture.
American. But it's not an American-centric thing. Thug culture is universal. There's always
Yeah.
going to be crowds that
I'm not
idolize
saying-
having money
hey.
and violence and all that shit. It's not just
I'm not
America.
saying like
the
crime didn't
flavour
exist
of it, I
5
think he's
years ago.
saying.
Yeah, I'm saying that the attitude of crime at the moment, like what Jordies was saying, is like these wannabe YouTubers and wannabe rappers, and I think that is an export from American culture.
I mean, YouTube is American. I guess that's what you could say.
Well, all the famous YouTubers are American. All the biggest
No,
influencers.
that's not true. What? All the
Well,
famous
the ones that-
YouTubers are not American.
You're saying
the
that
ones
because
that we
you're the one
digest over
watching
here are
them.
definitely. Yeah, exactly. And so are most Australians, the people that we're talking about right now.
Okay, but I'm talking more globally than English-speaking audiences. Like, Turkish gangbangers are not watching whatever the fuck.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't never
American
talking about Turkish gangbangers.
You're saying
were.
that America is exporting it to all of the rest of the world.
I think I was specifically talking about Australia, but maybe
that's fair.
maybe I slipped up there.
Can we talk about a
Well,
service that will let you watch gangsters wherever they may be?
Yeah, we
Finally.
can.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jordan's been
Jordan was
all
waiting for
episode.
this.
Look, if you want your gangster rap American or German or Swedish or South African, it does not matter, because ExpressVPN is going to allow you to check out all the gangster rap that your heart desires. It doesn't matter what country it's being uploaded in or what country you happen to be browsing the internet through, because ExpressVPN is going to allow you to change your location and access whatever content might be restricted wherever you are. Look, we get the creed of 2023 now, don't we? That streaming services are kind of a scam in a way, because they just block half the fucking content because of stupid
no reason.
For no reason, really. Like stupid licensing, or just, it doesn't make any sense at all. No sense at all. So why are you paying for those things while only getting half of your money's worth? And why are you browsing the internet unprotected? Every time you connect to an encrypted network, such as a cafe, a hotel, an airport, any hacker can get on that network and go, oh, look, it's your personal data. That's mine now. We might have a guest on this show right now who would very much appreciate not having his personal data out on the internet. I don't know. Either way, ExpressVPN is going to be a great option to buff up your potential internet browsing functionality. Secure your internet data today by visiting expressvpn.com/official. That's expressvpn.com/official to get an extra 3 months for free. expressvpn.com/official, extra 3 months for free. And now that you have saved that money, getting those months for free, would you like to save even more money? Because with Honey, you can do that. If you like shopping on the internet, well, you're a modern, ordinary human being. Because, I mean, look, malls are dying, brick and mortar stores are closing down. It's just all online. Why go out? Why have a limited selection of whatever's in stock? Why not browse the entirety of a storefront? But while you're doing that, why pay full price for anything? Let Honey scan the internet for promo codes and other coupons. And you don't have to do the legwork. You don't have to do anything. Just install it on your browser, click the little drop down. While you're shopping, let it save you some money. We at the Official Podcast use Honey for everything. I mention this probably every time. I buy cables constantly. I just had to buy like 9 fucking aux cables for an audio thing I'm setting up. And let me tell you, that shit adds up. Don't pay full price for that stuff. There's so many vendors that sell those things, and there's so many discounts floating around forever. Honey doesn't just work on desktop, it works on the iPhone as well. Just activate it on Safari on your phone and save on the go. If you don't already have Honey, you could straight up be missing out, and by getting it, you're doing yourself a solid and supporting the show. Get PayPal Honey for free at joinhoney.com/official. That's PayPal Honey for free at joinhoney.com/official.
There's really no reason not to. It's just, it works. It's just easy.
It's free.
It's free
Why
money.
not?
Yeah, so where were we? What were we talking about?
I can go back to the topic of
discounts on Honey.
free money. I watched the video that you did with Is it Boy Boys? I always fuck up the name.
I
of
call
that
them the
channel.
Boy Boys as well.
Yeah.
And they seemed quite pissed off at that. And so now I do it on purpose. But I think, yeah, it's Boy apparently.
Boy, that was it. I always fuck up the details on that name. But I watched the money laundering video you did with them at the arcades and casinos and that. And it's pretty astounding how you could walk in there with t-shirts that say, "I'm here to launder money." And obviously, the staff doesn't step in, but what really blew me away is the other patrons don't care at all. They're just zombified on their machines, and I'm wondering, you guys jumped into that a little bit and talked a little bit about that. What was the atmosphere like doing that in the casino itself when you kind of figured out that no one was going to stop you, but more importantly, that no one else even seemed to care or was even paying attention to what you were doing?
The only person that did, there was this really scary, massive security guard that came up to us, turned us around and was like, "What do you boys think you're doing?" And then he saw it was me. I was like, "Oh, FriendlyJordies. Can I get a photo?" "Oh, right, what are you doing? Some prank here, are you?" "Oh, man, you had to choose my venue, didn't you? Run along, scamp."
He just
kept laundering money.
Yeah, he should have led you to the VIP money laundering section.
Yeah, just giving you like a really sweet deal, honestly.
I don't know if you can get more of a sweet deal. It's just like an immediate return. I mean, even if you exchange money, you lose a lot in the currency exchange, yeah? Like, there is no loss there at all. They don't even take kind of like a transfer fee, nothing like that. It is just pure, there you go, now you've got your receipt, it's official money, done. And then you go on your merry way. I think, first off, what I remember about it is just being extremely scared, because it was just fucking terrifying doing that video. But then after a while, we just were walking around and realizing exactly what you realized, that no one's stopping us. Yeah. And then I think I could speak for both Alex and I think we forgot we were wearing the shirts, and then we were just putting in money and being like, "Oh, this is boring. Hurry up. It's taking too long." There's got to be an easier way to clean money.
These poor criminals.
The part
$50 at a time.
Yeah. The part that's also really striking to me is you go through all that and no one cares, no one notices. The people who do notice are just like, haha, that's so funny. But walking up to the cash out clerk with a stub for $5,000 in change, and they don't even blink. They don't even care.
Because it's a daily occurrence.
Oh my God.
They all know that that's the game. It's gotten to that level. And these are how most of these... look, I guess you could say that the Catholic and sports clubs of Australia are like the Yakuza. They started out noble and look at
But they do a good palmy, Jordy. Where else are I going to get a $12 chicken parmigiana? Yeah,
Okay, well, I think that actually the money laundering has helped out with that, because back in the day, they did not do a good palmy. But now I think they have the money for good chefs. You guys probably don't even know what a palmy is. It's think of like a chicken schnitzel with lasagna on it. Huh?
Yeah, this was our main topic the last time you were on the show. All the chicken parmies.
Wait, was it?
Yeah, with that politician who was obsessed with them, remember?
You're right.
Yeah.
Holy fuck, why did that come up again? That's so weird. Anyway.
Billionaire magnate. No, but that's these clubs now, they used to kind of offer a social service, and you go there and you do your little underleagues football teams, and you'd go there and play lawn bowls. But now you just go there and there is just a bunch of zombies pressing a button, slowly losing their life savings. It's a very different atmosphere to what I remember when I was 12 years old going into those places.
100%.
So you've noticed it as well.
Oh yeah.
So it's just like all of those clubs have turned into a really shit Vegas with no fun water fountains out the front that look like the Leaning Tower of Pisa or something. Huh?
John, I think we were just kids. Like, I think it's always been that way. We've just never realized it. Like, my family has been addicted to poker machines for as long as I remember, basically. Like, they are those zombies. So I was
yes, pokies and gambling addicts absolutely exist. Oh yeah, if it ruined your life, you would know that is one of the most socially damaging products there is.
Yeah, it's genuinely disturbing. I don't think we're quite putting it in the right perspective for the Americans, because like to do gambling over in America, you have to go to specific locations, right?
Well, like an Indian casino or something.
Yeah,
It
either on
depends on
those
the state,
reservations
yeah.
or Vegas, right?
It depends on the
Isn't that how it
state.
works?
Yeah.
What's the deal with an Indian casino? Why are they so famous?
They're
actually don't know.
contractual negotiations between the Indian tribes and America, as kind of it's like a long, complicated history. But basically, one part of it is, oh, we're sorry we kicked you out and fucked you over. How about you make casinos to get a bunch of money back, and you can do it and we can't. How's that? That work?
Oh, okay. So it's kind of like this lawless grey area, kind of like starting a radio station back in the 60s in like international waters. You know?
Sorta, yeah.
Is it like that?
yeah.
Okay, right.
It's kind of. It sounds like kind of like reparations, right? Like, hey, here's this free money hack. It's only
their
yours.
revenge.
You can have
Well,
it.
they are literally a money machine. Like you
They
can't
are.
get a better business than a casino. I mean,
You really
we used to
can't.
have a media mogul here called Kerry Packer, and he just owned all the press here and everything like that. Years ago, he just switched over to casinos, and
Does he own Star?
obviously he's never looked back.
What does he own?
No, I think he's a Crown boy.
Oh,
I think that's the
Crown,
one that he
okay.
owns. Man, you want to hear something really
What's a
scary that I
Crown
heard
boy?
about Crown Casino? Oh,
the casinos over here.
It's terrifying. You can really see that casinos are sort of like the US military industrial complex of Australia. Like they really own this place. Along Sydney, I would have to say is one of the most beautiful cities on earth. I'm not being biased there at all. It's just a fact.
No,
And,
it is. It is beautiful. Yeah, it really is.
But our skyline used to be incredible. And then, Kerry
yeah.
Packer got all those exemptions. And you've seen it, right? That new,
Yeah.
ugly, let's make Sydney Dubai too. And then they just make this huge
Just this
building. Like,
monolithic skyscraper right on the harbour.
that's the kind of money we're
Australians-
talking about. Destroying, huh?
Aren't Australians also, I think, statistically the world's biggest gamblers? With the highest losses,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, massively. I think a big part of that as well is that gambling is almost illegal in most Asian countries. I think Asian countries have it exactly right, where they say, our citizens aren't allowed to gamble here, but if you're some mark from another one, we've got a casino for you and you can just empty your pockets there.
Isn't that why? Isn't that why? Like Macau? Is it Macau? I think.
Yeah, Macau.
Or Hong Kong. One of the two. I think it's both actually. Hong Kong and Macau are like they're like tourist hotspots because of all the gambling there. They're like the Las Vegases of the world, basically.
Yeah. But with those Crown venues, this used to be a thing in Melbourne. I don't know if they've got it anymore, but Crown also has like a similar skyline building that's terrifying, and it looks almost a bit like that pyramid at the beginning of Blade Runner with all of the
Yeah.
fire just coming up at the beginning. That's what it looks like. It just dominates the entire skyline. And it has actually these fire displays that come out the top of it at night every hour. Huge.
Yeah.
You can see it
Fuck,
throughout
that's
the
hype.
entire city.
That's pretty fucking
Yeah.
awesome.
That's
It is.
cool.
I know. That's what I think every time I see it as well. It's just like, it's dystopic, but no one didn't say that dystopia isn't rad.
Yeah, people love cyberpunk.
Yeah, it's very cyberpunk. It's sick. But they used to have these floors, these rooms. And I remember someone worked there, and it was just this kind of mystery door in the toilets. And someone that I was talking to asked their manager once, what are those doors for? And they said, quite often people kill themselves in the bathrooms when they lose too much money. And so this is an easy way of getting the body out without disturbing the rest of the gamblers.
Holy shit.
Jesus
Isn't that
Christ.
insane?
There's a death tunnel. There's so many deaths
There's a
that they had to
death
install
tunnel.
a door.
Yeah,
To, like,
on
oh my
multiple
God.
levels. Now, I don't know if they've still got those anymore, or got cleaned up, because then they did have a commission into it, and then they had some recommendations, like, all right, just stop making the fire go 60 meters in the air. Let's just keep it to 50.
Like the Canadians.
People are killing themselves because the fire goes too high. So
That was the issue. It's too high.
So what would you say is the public opinion on this in Australia? Do most people just ignore this, not even know about this, or are
Yes.
they pissed, or?
No, they're
100%.
pissed. It's just, it's never really bubbled to the surface. What's happened recently is because of the guy that we covered a lot, that Troy Stolz dude, he, like most whistleblowers, he really put literally his life on the line. Like, he has been hassled to the point, and I actually truly do believe this. I know a lot of people will always say that this is a pseudoscience and whatnot, but I really do think that you can be stressed to the point of becoming terminally ill. And if anyone had ever had that situation, it's that guy. Now, he might have gotten cancer anyway, but you cannot say that it didn't not make the situation a lot worse that his former employer, Clubs New South Wales, now this is the guy that was supposed to be going around to these venues and checking if they're complying with anti-money laundering laws, and then he found out that, I think it was, the stat is 97% of the places just aren't, and as you saw, they're clearly not. Anyway, he went out and complained about it. Now, this is the whole thing. When people always say with conspiracies and all this stuff that thousands of people have to be in on it for the conspiracy to work, and I used to always sit there and think, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. No one wouldn't not talk. But now, when I see this regular pattern, say when we do things with the Australian military or, Clubs New South Wales, huge government projects of billions and billions of dollars just getting illegally sucked out into some pork barreling project. No, there are thousands of people that are involved in these, in some instances, or at the very least hundreds, that just shut their mouths and keep going on with their jobs because no one wants to lose their job. And if they 100%. And if they do say something like Troy Stolz did, they make an example of him. They try to ruin his life with a bunch of slap suits that are obviously bullshit, but especially our court system here, I think you can really see the difference between our court system and America's court system with the Johnny Depp trials. Like, there in America, if you want a camera, you're allowed a camera in court. Everyone gets to see what's going on there. You want a jury? No complaints whatsoever. Here, because we have the same court system that was, there to stop people making fun of the King of England's crown, right? And it's still just the same one.
Yeah, nothing's changed.
Mm-hmm. Nothing's changed. And so if you get dragged through the court system here, your life is very easily ruined. This guy lost his house, went through a divorce, suffering with terminal cancer, and the whole time he's just getting dragged in the press, all kinds of threats on him, had to go into hiding as well. But
you mean the same press that was owned by one of the people who owns all the casinos?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a coincidence.
That is such a wild coincidence. You also mentioned something that I also found very interesting in the Firebomb follow-up video. You mentioned that there is a law from the 1700s still in effect in Australia today where if a politician says something stupid in Parliament or something, it can't be used against them.
Yeah.
That's fucking
anything they say in Parliament can't be used against them because it's protected speech or whatever. It's protected by some clause in our constitution or whatever, our legal system. So yeah, basically what happened, right, Jordan, was like John Barilaro, the guy that was suing you, said something in a parliamentary hearing that you wanted to use as evidence, and you weren't able to actually use that as evidence because he said it in Parliament.
Yeah, despite there being a transcript available that we can show right now. Like, you could go to the judge and just be like, I can Google this in 5 seconds and show you an official transcript that our tax money pays for it to be documented of this man. Now, I'm not allowed to say, I've got to be very, very careful about what I say here, but saying things in Parliament. And then you go to the courts and then the judge will say, no, because he said it in this special magic room here. Everything that he said can't be used.
The confession booth.
So dumb.
And so we had to spend... Yeah. Well, you know why? Because it's the same... The reason is, like, you Americans, you really don't know how good you've got it on this one thing, right? Like, I understand your healthcare system and stuff's a shambles, but... when it comes
really
to
don't.
free speech,
They really don't, dude. I completely agree with you. Like, I know the American legal system gets a lot of fucking shit deservedly, but they also have these few little perks that they never stop to actually think about how much it improves their lives. For instance, I think
Oh, so you've got the same thing.
I'm from Germany, but I'm now in America. And for instance, in Germany, we don't have double jeopardy laws. We also don't have juries. So you can be convicted of something, and it's entirely up to the judge to just be like, I don't like your face, fuck you, life in prison. And then if you like demand some sort of a retrial, they can literally go, oh, never mind, actually double life in prison. Because there's no double jeopardy laws keeping them from it. They can, like the German government can sue you as many times as they want until they have the results that they wanted. It's like little small fucked up shit like that.
Hang on, so there's no such thing as a jury in Germany. It doesn't exist.
Not to my knowledge, not that I've ever heard.
That is incredible. Because
Do you have them in Australia?
You can have a jury, but you have to beg the judge and pay the price of a fucking Tesla for the privilege of begging him. But you can, at least, there's a possibility that you can get it.
So that's
incredible.
What is the purpose of that law in effect? Like, why would you have that law other than to protect politicians?
There's no purpose now. There's no purpose now.
Well, yeah, there is a purpose for it, absolutely, but it just doesn't benefit the general public at all. But the reason that you, obviously, your Bill of Rights, you've got free speech, right? Our system is based off ye old British system, which is that there is free, because, everybody always talks about how amazing the Magna Carta was. Really what the Magna Carta was the lords of England getting more rights for themselves off of the king, but not for the commoners. So in the House of Lords, they gave themselves free speech if you're a lord. So that's what our system is based off today, because they've changed their names and whatever, but a British version of the Senate is the House of Lords, and back in the day you had to be a lord to be in the Senate of theirs, and so ours is based off that same system here. And so if you are in Parliament, in the eyes of the law from basically Shakespearean times, you have free speech. And no one else does. And so defamation laws really was pretty much there because we're a convict colony, really there to just punish someone for, I don't know, making fun of a governor or something like that. And, doing something that's actually more punitive than putting them in prison, which is bankrupting them and dragging their name through the press. And back in the day, the press was the only avenue of societal communication. So if you had your name dragged in the press back then whatever they said about you, that's true. Your life's over. And you have no money to fight it left over. So the entire point of defamation laws in this country is to just bankrupt someone for pissing off a lord. And that's how the courts see it.
Basically,
in our country, we don't really have free speech. It's kind of just... It's always just this technical grey zone that goes to judges, and then, like what you were saying, Kaya, it's if a judge doesn't like you, like in my defamation case, pretty much because YouTube got rid of the downvote button, he did extreme things to the law here that pushed it into the realm of like, fuck, am I getting tried in Guantanamo Bay? Like, it's getting pretty insane. And they can. And they can do it here. It's just, I don't know, like, because America's so paranoid of the King of England, it seems like their entire legal system is based off of stopping the King of England from having all these rights, while ours is just based on the King of England having all the rights, I guess.
Well, lords in general, politicians
and
in
lords,
general. Yeah, it's definitely something that I don't think most people think about in Australia is how protected politicians are from, like, we talk shit about them and everything, but there's really just an extra level of rights afforded to them above everyone else that's just kind of I guess subtle. It's like, it's pervasive. It's like you don't really recognize it, but it exists, and sadly Jordan here got to experience it firsthand.
But I think that was it. I think it was just because I actually was just putting on wigs and mocking them, and then they started getting pissed off at that, and that like broke the line. But I think that normally, and this is how good power operates, right? Like you have those implied rights, you have that power, but you don't exercise it as extreme as they have on me or, say, Troy Stolz. But once you do exercise it like that, and especially in the age of the internet, and this is why videos like Charlie's is so important, it creates this groundswell, this public groundswell, where the average public citizen starts actually thinking about it. Because in your day-to-day life, obviously, like you're working at a supermarket or whatever, like you don't have time to think about, implied free speech from the case of 1856.
You don't think about that through your day-to-day?
Yeah, I mean, let's not get carried away. I can't count the number of times throughout like my college career where I'm studying for a test and I'll just stare off into space and be like, damn, I still remember back in the 1812 implied free speech era.
Very, very
Or if
often.
the king comes back.
Very, very often when I'm
any day
talking to
now.
people, I run through mental gymnastics and think, are they a lord? Should I be talking to them? Do they have lordship status?
Those
How
old
protected
laws,
is
though,
this
you,
guy?
Should I
like you
curtsy
said,
this man?
you don't think about them. We had something similar in Germany a while back where a comedian wrote like a insulting poem kind of thing about the Turkish president. Now, German comedian in Germany wrote an insult about the Turkish president, and they almost had to extradite him based on some old fucking law that says you cannot insult foreign heads of government. The German legal system had to come in at the last second and go, oh fuck, this is gonna really embarrass us. We need to get rid of this law.
Yeah.
Damn.
Well, did they do the right thing then? Like
Did they
changed
extradite
that
him?
law?
Only after a lot of controversy, only after like this went viral. Like you're actually
Well,
going
that's
to hand
good. That's
over
good,
a
right? That's
comedian? Yes,
That's
it's
that's
good.
what should happen with that's what should happen with old laws, right? Like they change with what society wants, I guess, or what society thinks is right.
Well,
like
it's see this is where it, like you get into like a really nuanced technical argument about the law, but our system in Australia is based off of common law, which is it's based off a bunch of precedents of what judges said in the past, which is that's got its own problems. Like a lot of the times in my court case, and obviously I can't show it, which is why I was just sitting there just like while Johnny Depp was going on in his case, and it was just the case of world controversy and ire and all that stuff. I was like, yeah, he's a lucky son of a bitch though. Like people get to see what's going on. But
yeah, nothing's hidden behind like closed rooms and stuff like that.
yes, but you would notice this recurring pattern over again, which is the precedent, which is just what a judge ruled at whatever time in the past. This is why they're just dragging out laws from fucking, the Stone Age, essentially, just anywhere that they can. Judges, it seems to me, use these precedents of what a judge said before in the past when it suits what they want to do.
Yeah.
And then when it doesn't suit them, then they just make a new law and a new precedent. So it does have, and then that becomes the precedent, right? But I think that was actually a better system than what we have now, where they're getting rid of all of what is common law, like all of these things that judges have figured out between themselves over hundreds of years. Now what's happening is we're moving into people in Parliament that are just completely politically motivated, wiping out all of those precedents because they've just figured out like, oh, politicians can make laws now as well. And so they just wipe out hundreds of years of judges arguing amongst each other, and then they just say, this is the new law. I don't even have a degree in the law, like John Barilaro doesn't even have a fucking uni degree, but he can just go into, just make any piece of shit law he wants. There you go. That's the law from now on. I think that's what's happening to the legal system now, and it's actually far scarier because it's just, because they do it all the time, right? Like they'll just wait for something to just get snagged and some judge along the way, like it just keep going up to like high court, and then they'll say, no, I think that this is, insane. We're not going to pass that. I've got these precedents from the past to back me up. If you get a nice judge, that can happen, but that can't happen anymore. Now they're just like, now politicians, because they have that right, they can just be like, these are the laws, you have to follow them to the letter. And so it can go all the way up to our version of the Supreme Court, and then those judges are just like, fuck, my hands are tied. You're going away to jail for 20 years. And that's what happened to the whistleblower that we're talking about in the Australian Defence Force. Like
That's another interesting one. Yeah, you've been hitting a lot of things recently, and I watched that one with my girlfriend, and we were just like, just shocked, like beyond belief, really, that this was something that happened that our eyes weren't open to, basically, because the media does such a good job of like just clouding everything. And
shutting up about it.
Yeah.
Well, you should have seen it. We were there on the day that there was this huge historical judgment that was happening of pretty much the same thing, really. Is this man going to be able... It's not even a jury, actually. It was like, is this man even allowed to have witnesses in this case? Is he allowed to bring up his own witnesses? And then the judge, because of all these piece of shit rules, was just like, no, he's not even allowed to have witnesses. The prosecution is allowed to have as many witnesses as they like. You're not, right? And so then they were just like, fuck it, we're going to have to, it was a big kerfuffle. Anyway, like, it's a huge thing happened in court that day. And there was a bunch of press there for another press controversy case. There's a darling press case that I won't get into now. But they were all there on that same day. And David McBride was walking out. This is a man that's talking about, very serious stuff of Afghan kids basically just being used as some kind of like shooting fun game, like they're a fucking duck getting hunted or something like that.
To give some like I don't know, exposition for the boys here and people who may not know, he's basically a whistleblower against like Australian war crimes, right?
Yeah. Like very, very serious stuff that happened in Afghanistan. And yeah, that day, a huge press scrum for this other case that, it was a serious case, sure. But it was pretty garden variety. Like, it was just a normal court case that was happening. It was just big press attention around it. And then he walks out after this massive ruling that I've decided that defendants aren't allowed to have witnesses anymore. Not one camera on him. Just us, just being like, so how did you think you went in there, mate? That was it.
It was just your team.
Just my team. Oh, there was a couple of other independent journalists there. They got their little like piece on the note, but all the big outlets,
mainstream media,
all the main ones there. Not one of those massive cameras that they still have on their shoulders.
I hate the arguments that if you let any camera near the courtroom, it may sway public opinion, which then might affect the court ruling or the judges or the jury. It's like, oh yeah, but we can let a gaggle of like these subhuman journalists into the room, and then we'll unleash them onto the public to tell the story they want to. And that apparently will not sway public opinion. Fuck you.
No, yeah, of course not. Yes, no, because they're trained, you see. They really, they're trained to be objective.
They have restraint.
Yes.
They know what's best for us. They know the facts that we are ready to hear and to conceal the ones we're not ready to.
They're real good at thinking.
And you know what else I think is like such a crock as well?
We are.
You know what else is like actually something that I've noticed about when you're in court as well?
Only you could say that sentence since you've been in court every week of the last 6 years.
Have any of you guys noticed when you've been in court recently that it's been getting a little fishy?
I've never even seen a fucking courthouse, Jordan. You're living in them.
Yeah, that actually, to bring it back, was like quite a Jerry Seinfeld open, wasn't it? Just being like, do you ever get that feeling when you're in court? But yeah, I was. You sit in there and you realise, yeah, okay, these lawyers and judges and barristers, okay, they might be some of the smartest people that society produces. I'll give them that. And they can speak Latin and they can make you feel like an absolute imbecile. And as soon as you get in there, you have to bow to the judge and,
thank you, dearest Lord.
It was just the insanity of this one sentence of him wearing, because they still wear those old school judge wigs that you guys in Australia, so they still wear that stuff. But then they all have like very pompous British accents. And there was one line that he once said was, I find Jordan's accents and wigs to be quite silly. While he's wearing...
What an asshole.
Is there a reason they still do that? Because, like, why? Why keep the powdered wigs and everything?
We know.
Hey,
let's the 1700s.
Yeah, let's not... Because it's still the 1700s in there, yeah, but also, like, let's keep that. I'm a big fan of those wigs.
Oh, true, yeah, sorry. I don't want to take the fun out of court.
That's the only reason Jordan goes back is for the dress up, for the pageantry.
Yeah. But like you have all of that, and like the you know, unbelievable speakers. All of them are amazing orators, but. And they make you feel stupid, and then you leave the court and you're just like, wow, yeah, I must have really done something wrong. I mean, that man was sitting in a very tall chair. And you think about it afterwards and you're like, no, that was fucked. Like, they completely just haunted, like, a guy's politics. Like, you know, exactly what Charlie just raised. They proved in court that someone is not a liar by saying you're not allowed to point out a document where he is, and I can't say it obviously, but you know, there's contention about that, you know? Like, that's how they can get around this stuff, but it's just like, they're just so, it's like this, it's this parallel universe where you go in there and everything is just like so inverted that these kind of like things that the average human being, when they see it, like, you find any schmo on the street and you'll be like, do you think it's fair that this guy gets to not point to a document, like an official document of this person's testimony? And they're just like, no, that's not fair at all. You know, like, but in that universe, because they're just so good at rationalizing it and they just live in it, right? They live in this 1700s time bubble. It makes perfect sense in there, but it's just like, that is not how the real world operates at all. Mm-hmm. It's so divorced from reality.
They haven't adjusted with the times, absolutely. I don't think that law ever like passed the sniff test, basically. Like, I think that was always pretty corrupt, obviously. It was just protecting lords, so I don't think it ever made sense for the common people.
But just getting to Kai's point, like, if the average person was able to see what was going on in there.
Yeah.
And I swear, this is exactly why in the Depp case you had the exact opposite result in the UK as you had in the US. I swear it was because the public isn't in there just being like, this is insane.
Well, another good example of this, well, I guess this isn't a good example at all, to be fair, unless you're just treating it like a spectator sport like I did, I suppose. There was a criminal, and I can't remember if it's Darnell or Daryl Brooks, but he was the guy who, like, he did some heinous shit. We don't have to get into how awful his crimes were, but they publicized
he was insane,
entire...
right? That's the insane guy who drove his car into a crowd, yeah.
Right.
He's the guy that drove the car into the crowd. He's also the one that had the rap music video with the car in it, which is how they immediately identified that he was him. They publicized that it was crazy. They even played the song in court, and he's like, "Can you at least turn the music up?" Because they played it muted. Like, it was a wild case. The point I'm making is, publicizing those things, I think is just like an integral public service. So that way people can see like how the process works. Because even in a case like his, there was a brief moment where the judge got emotional, which led to it being almost a contentious case of, was this judge fit to try this man? Which I found to be just absolutely outrageous, because watching it, he's representing himself. He doesn't have a lawyer. He is representing himself, and he is yelling, he's screaming. He puts a box fort around himself 3 times, and then they have to keep taking the boxes away from him.
Forts to hide himself.
He was making little forts to hide himself, and still, even with all of that, there was a slight chance that they were going to rule that it was a mistrial because the judge got emotional for a second because she had to keep taking away his fucking boxes. Like, and if that had happened, thanks to it all being publicized, the outrage would be unreal, and people could see, like, there is a problem if that was the case. Whereas if it happened behind closed doors, you don't have that luxury anymore, is the point I was trying to make.
Especially in big cases like that. Yeah, it makes sense. I don't think there should be cameras there, of course, in like small shit if you're trying to protect the identity of like a woman who's being abused by her husband or shit. But if it's a huge case, like, you know, Daryl Brooks, O.J. Simpson, Kyle Rittenhouse, Johnny Depp, 4K, 60 frames per second, please. All recordings should be public, because I do not trust a single reporter on earth to tell me what actually happened in that courtroom. Not one.
I would, Jordan, are there transcripts at least available of your court sessions? Like, are those entered into the public
how's
record?
this for the next move, right? Our Liberal Party, which I suppose is the American version of the Republicans, but it's not really the same. Like, it's different down here, but just to give people like a scope, I guess. But, you know, just love privatizing anything they possibly can get their hands on. You used to be able to go to the court registrar and say, can I get this transcript? And they'd say, no worries, that's fine, because it was a government service, right? Like you were in court, that's just your right as a citizen, you pay for it, there you go. They privatized that. So I got a transcript, but you know how much it cost me? $7,000.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Wait,
To get your own transcript?
To get
To
my
get your
own
own,
transcript.
like it's a fucking Disneyland like souvenir.
when did they do that? When did they make that private?
What the fuck?
Recently. This is
Disneyland
anytime they're in, they
souvenir,
just
like-
whatever they can get their hands on. The next thing they're trying to privatize at the moment is water. I mean, how much more fucking evil can you get than just like, yeah, we're going to give water to a company?
That's actually incredible
Yeah,
that they privatize court records.
yeah.
It's
They
what are the
privatize court
privacy
records, so
laws?
it's just like, it's a... Sorry, go on, sorry.
No, I was just gonna ask, what are like the privacy laws? So if I have $7,000, can I buy your court transcripts, or how does it work?
I'm not sure. That's never come up. No one's been that interested in my court transcripts.
Because that's another thing where I think it's the same thing as with the cameras in the court system. You know, I think for large public cases, they should be available. But again, if it's like just you getting divorced from your wife, that shouldn't be available to anybody, no matter how much money they
Well, no,
have.
I think everything in the criminal court should be public. Like, I'm fine with identities being like censored. I think there's ways to do that while you protect the anonymous nature of like witnesses and stuff like that. But I do think it's in the public's best interest to make all those cases public
If
in
it's
some
criminal,
respect.
yeah,
right?
but people go like most court cases aren't criminal. They're just petty disputes between neighbors. And
yeah,
this
no,
is why
I don't see.
America, again, one of the things that can be criticized about the system entirely is that it's written by boomers who still live in the phone book era mentally. So you can access anyone's anything. This is why like lolcows immediately have their marriage licenses leaked and their court transcripts onto like websites, and then people make fun of them.
Hey, you know what? Actually, since we live in a, as Jordan said, since we live in like a common law era, or at least did, I don't know if that changed.
It's
apparently.
changing, yeah.
Yeah, it's changing.
Yeah.
But we did at some point live in a common law society. In that case, I do think all court records, even civil ones, should be public record and easily accessible, since they are dictating what the law is, right? Because like the precedents from those cases then become law, essentially. So I think that in that case, it is important to be able to access every single court record possible, really.
Well, maybe
This
with the
kind
names
of-
redacted, I don't believe that you have a right
Yeah,
to
names
your
redacted,
neighbor's
I'm
petty
fine.
disputes.
Yeah. I guess kind of to piggyback off this whole idea, because I find this whole concept baffling. Let's say I pay for your transcripts. Like let's say that is something I can do. I have your court transcripts. Can I publicize those? Like, could I reenact your court case, or would that be an issue?
Well, you could. You're American. It's not like
Now
Australia
you're
can
getting into
extradite you.
really... Yeah. You're getting into very dicey territory. Let's just say this. I wouldn't advise you to do it, because you could get, you know, the hammer of Thor rained down on you.
Now, what
That
about
judge's mighty gavel.
what
Yeah.
about like skirting the issue though, where you don't like reenact it or say it verbatim, but you say, okay, this line is summarized meaning this, and this section is summarized to say this.
Now that is the smarter way to do it. But again,
That's still
really,
fascinating.
Yeah. Look, if you are ever going to do that, if you ever want to troll someone that hard, get a lawyer. Just ask a lawyer first.
Yeah.
Well, are they fine to do it regardless because they're in America, right?
Yeah, actually, I think they'd be fine. Yeah, I think they could just buy it for a laugh.
Could we just do this for you and then just do all the work and publish it on our
Extradite
American
us.
channels? And it'd
Fucking
be
John
fine?
Barilaro reaches out and he pulls some strings. We're in fucking Australia standing trial.
Could you use the small penis rule? Do you guys know that, the small penis defense? This is an informal thing that I heard about once, and I thought it was a joke, but it's apparently an actual thing where if you're trying to like clown on someone, let's say you write a book, and one of the bad characters in the book is based on a real politician that you're trying to
Oh yeah.
make fun of, you can say, well, he has a micro penis. He's a piece of shit politician and he believes this, this, and this, and he said this in court and in parliament. Also, he has a tiny micro penis. So apparently, because defamation has to be like very apparently the person that you are defaming, and you know, no man is gonna go before court and say this person with a micro penis is clearly me. You can try that.
That's absolutely ingenious.
That I haven't heard the term penis defense or whatever, micro dick defense, whatever. But Billy Mitchell, famed Donkey Kong cheater, famed fucking perpetual loser, he sued Cartoon Network for the regular show because they used his likeness in the episode where he's like a floating head. And he sued them for defamation, saying this is clearly me, exactly what Kaya just mentioned. And the judge was like, "No, this clearly isn't you. You're not a floating head, and you don't explode when people call you a cheater. We're throwing it out." That's wild. I didn't know that there was like an
that
actual
is
full
hilarious though,
defense of it.
because you could do that to the nth degree, however much you want. You could, Jordan, you could sit down and make a video slanderizing any politician left and right with everything that you want to say, and at the very end, you could say, "And also they have a micro penis." And
I'd like to reiterate it as a very informal thing.
Yeah, I don't think this is a thing
not
that
going to
actually
Oh, I know.
This
But
is
in theory-
bulletproof.
But in
Bullet-
theory,
Actually, we have a
in-
test
in-
case in mind. No, actually, yeah, we have the theory. The theory has failed. I was forced to edit out that he's a greasy fat wogcock.
Oh
I
man,
had to edit that out. Isn't
you're-
it incredible? Like all of my likeness to him, it was just like that was actually like part of the settlement, just being like, because I sold keychains of him looking like a penis, right? Like just a penis keychain of him, and then they were just like, "That's extremely defamatory. This man is not a walking penis."
He doesn't even
I had
look
to
like
get rid
it.
of it.
Please tell me somewhere in the official court records they had to like measurably determine that he wasn't actually a walking penis. They had to legally put it down.
Man, I can guarantee you right now that that was one of the least funny things that happened in that defamation trial. And yes, that did happen.
You have to be sure.
God, I wish I could go into it. I really do. There's so many things that like it was just hilarious because it was you know, the YouTube world meets the 1700s. Like it was just so incompatible. Like, you know, you can't even like think about it, right? Like floppy disks from the 80s are just a fucking joke, let alone that time. You know, like but it was that world trying to rule on the internet in this day and age, and a bunch of 80-year-olds sitting around there, just like not getting the pop cultural references at all, and then just being like to their advisors and stuff, just like, what was one? Like, it wasn't this, but it's like, this is an example, just being like, "What's a DM? Officer of the court?" And then he'd just be like, "I'll take that on notice." And then he'd have to run out of the courtroom and he'd be like,
Figure it out.
yeah, come back in and be like, "Apparently it means direct message, Your Honor." He'd be like, "And what does direct message mean?" He'd be like, and then have to run out of the court again. Like that was it was paused so many times because of that stuff.
Well, where was he running to? Like the nearest university to like reach out to a committee about
Yeah,
what
was going to the library
surely,
and
yeah,
hopping
just
on
like
the computer.
the young person's advisor or something. Yeah.
Yeah, he was calling his son like, "Hey, Junior, what the fuck is a DM?"
this man's innocence just on the line.
This is why they have to call in
What's the
experts
answer?
oftentimes too. I remember during the Rittenhouse thing, they had to call in a digital forensics experts to explain what pixels are to the judge.
Damn.
I get it. Times is rapidly changing and new technology is existing at like, you know, an
Yeah, it's
increasing
always
rate. You
going
can't
to
know
lag behind.
everything.
It's
So
also-
I get it.
There has to be a balance too. You can't just go around changing the law every time a newfangled thing comes along and people demand it, right? This is the same. You know, in America, oftentimes you hear, "Well, the First Amendment is so antiquated. We need to update it so, you know, to make slurs illegal." It's like, well, maybe we shouldn't do that actually, just because you're offended today. It's a balance.
Yeah, that
It's
was
a
another
balancing
great
act.
Yes. Well, that was a great thing about common law. Like, as again I said, like it has like its huge detractions, but actually judges sitting there and arguing about it as the generations go on, they kind of catch up a little bit, but they also do have 50 years of experience in the court system, and they think, yeah, okay, well maybe this will work and this doesn't work, and so you have that sort of buffer zone and breathing space to do it. It's not like this enshrined, set in stone, thou shalt not. But it's also got this kind of thing of like, there's a lag time to it. So you can get rid of a lot of the frivolities of the day, I guess.
Was common law still kind of influenced by politicians and you know, powerful figures though?
Yeah. Like they always had this power, but then like the last federal government here was particularly nasty. It's actually our opposition leader now, Peter Dutton. He is A genius. You know what? He looks like Voldemort, and that classic quote of just like, he did great things, terrible things, but great things. Peter Dutton. Yeah, he looks exactly like Voldemort, and he is a genius, but he's an evil genius. He
really does.
And he started going down that entire train. Like, he
looks like a clone, like someone that was supposed to get cloned, but something went awry.
He looks like Voldemort's in the first movie in the back of that guy's head.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Very apt.
What the fuck?
Yeah, he's an evil-looking dude.
He's an evil.
He actually does look straight up like evil.
Yes. I'm telling you, like, it's just like, you can judge a book by its cover sometimes. Like, he's an evil guy. But again, like, he's that level of evil where you're just like, fuck, respect. Like, there's nothing worse to me.
I've seen that level, to be honest with you.
Yeah? Like, sometimes when someone pulls... Oh, you guys in the YouTube world, obviously, you'd hate that. But, like, that's the thing. Like, when you see, like, a YouTuber trying to pull a scam, it's always like, you fucking idiot. But then... there's like some people out there in the world that pull like such a scam that is just so like, Matrix dodgy that you're just like, yeah, it's fucked, but like, you have to admire the art of it.
Yeah, it's like a good bank heist. It's like,
robbery
is bad,
like
but
Jerry
watching the
Seinfeld.
plan, it's like, holy shit.
Yeah, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
You admire Jerry Seinfeld for his willingness to fuck an underage girl.
Jerry
Seinfeld
very
very
times in
genius.
this episode.
Yes.
It wasn't
I just
exactly
think
a
more people need to
clever
know.
Conspiracy.
Well, apparently it was, because no one's talking about it.
Yeah, it's not like he was like some kind of bank robbery heist here, so I'll get her in here.
That's your next
plan.
That's your next video, Jordan. Just tackle Jerry Seinfeld and all the horrible things he's done, because Jackson just can't get enough.
Yeah, okay, all right.
If I'm any indicator of your audience base, you should really tackle the Jerry Seinfeld market, I think.
Yeah, all the evil things he's done in the world. All right. So it's the 17-year-old thing, and the last episode was somewhat lackluster.
Yeah, his refusal to hug, was it Rihanna? He didn't hug her at that award show?
Oh, I thought everyone loved him for that. I thought everyone was like, wow, what a boss.
Oh.
Wasn't that the...
What does he do on Netflix? Is that fucking coffee with
Comedians in cars getting
coffee.
coffee. Yeah.
Yeah, talk about that shit. That's fucking annoying as
Yeah.
well.
Well, you never know, Jordan. You might be the first one to dive down this fucking well and find out he's like a fucking sex trafficker with ties to the drug cartels. You never know. You could be
Yeah,
that
you're the
first.
journalist.
Wouldn't
Make it-
that be
make
a
it work.
scoop? Holy
Yeah.
hell.
Or just
that'd
make it
blow
up.
Watergate out of the water, wouldn't it?
Or just make all this up and make a really good video first. That's what matters on the
why not?
internet.
You're a YouTuber before you're a journalist, right? That's what's important.
Come back, do an apology video, just say, I may have got some of the facts wrong. Not mention what the
I've timestamped every incorrect fact, and it's just an hour of clips.
Sorry, I got firebombed. Make sure it's fine.
Yeah, you can find it on my website, not in the description.
I firebombed my own house. I just really needed a story. I'm sorry.
Jerry Seinfeld becomes an Australian citizen just to take you through our court system again, just because it's so easy.
So petty.
Fights you in a parliament room so it can't be recorded.
Yeah.
He's a genius.
You're in his domain now.
Yeah, becomes an Australian citizen, runs for parliament.
Becomes the lord of your country.
That'd be huge.
Oh, man.
I did want to ask, is it true? I don't know if you even can. Did you actually fuck in Barilaro's estate? For those that don't know, John Barilaro, like the most powerful man in the area, in New South Wales, put his fucking place, his residency up as an Airbnb, and Jordan filmed content there and claimed that he had sex in the rooms in the house. Is that factually accurate?
Well, a gentleman never tells boys, but yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, like, dude, like, I mean, how could you not? It's too funny.
Yeah.
100%.
Such a
They
hilarious...
can sue you after
a
the
good
fact,
joke.
but he can't remove the like memories of that room. You know, once it's done, it's
shame.
done.
That's what as well. Like, I like the thought of him just being like, I know it was in the guest houses, but my guest houses are as big as my mansion, so which room was it? I like him just like obsessively steam cleaning all of them. And that's why I'm always reticent to talk about it, because I never want to give away the details of like the exact bed that the events happen.
Oh,
Well, you should have fucked in his kitchen too. You should have really gone all over the house.
yeah. Should have rolled on the floor like a fucking caterpillar, just
Oh,
going
you should
everywhere.
have hid something like really stinky somewhere that's really hard to track down, so he has to constantly be like on the scavenger
air
hunt.
vents.
Yeah.
We hid little Mario toys around the place. So I think
Aw.
to this day, he's just like picking them up. Because like our whole thing was just like, we call him Super Barilaro Bruz. Because like we found out he got really pissed off when we talked about him being Italian. So we just leaned into it hard. And like, dude, I think to this day, like, because he ordered a bug sweep of the house after we were there. I really like the thought of like SWAT teams going through and picking up little Mario toys from the coffee cup and wherever else we put them.
Using taxpayer money, by the way, just so that's on the record. Like, this was a government agency that did the bug sweep, correct, Jordan?
Now,
'Cause I don't wanna
actually,
get
no,
anything
I
wrong.
don't know if it actually went through or not. Like, he requested it, and I think the cops were just like, "That's stupid." But he was also the deputy premier, so like, it's just like, yeah, well, I'm your boss, so fucking do it. But I'm not sure.
I like how
I mean, I'm going to assume it did.
I like how they let him list his fucking place as an Airbnb.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
I can't believe there wasn't any checks and balances there.
Charlie, he let himself do it. He wrote the law. He sat on the committee and was just like, oh yeah, I could rent that. Yeah, I've decided that that's legal.
See,
Was
that's
it
like,
was
I
it
get the
illegal
bug sweep
before?
parts.
It's just like the law didn't exist before, and so he just made it because it's just, again, it's new technology. This is why this is another thing that politicians are just like, yeah, we got to do this because, technology is just moving so fast. We need to have like basic legal say over the court system now.
That's so fucking dumb.
Yeah.
That is so fucking
That's
dumb.
absolutely-
That is.
I was gonna say,
this guy,
Like,
this,
you really, it's just like I cannot understate like how unbelievably corrupt
slimy,
the New
yeah.
South Wales Liberal Party is. Like
John Barilaro, you've done a fantastic job of like really shining a light on him specifically to almost a comedic level. Like one of the most interesting things at the moment is that he's retired. Jordan has basically bullied him out of his political career, but before he left his political career, he set up this fancy, cushy, taxpayer-paid job, basically through the government. What is it, like envoy to New York, basically? Like
a trade commissioner.
Yeah, in New York, and he's given himself that position post government, like retirement.
And
or
how's
leaving
this?
government.
Is so incompetent that he didn't qualify for the job that he invented for himself.
And wasn't the
So he had
wasn't
to
the starting
change the criteria again. So it was just pretty much like, were you premier for 10 years? Yes. Okay, you qualify. Well done. I'm the only one that like that.
And wasn't it completely blatantly transparently bullshit too, where his starting salary for that position was like $500,000 or some shit?
Ah, yeah, that's the well, actually, see, this is something else. I don't know if this happens in America a lot, but in Australia, we're always whining about politicians getting like a huge amount of superannuation, or I think it's called 401k or something in the US when they retire.
retirement fund? Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know if they get like a huge pension when they retire in the US out of
They
politics.
don't need
but
to. They get bribes.
yes, well, see, this is the thing. If you do not have that pension, you've really opened it up for bribes massively, because it's just like I never really thought about this until I really started getting into politics and like talking in these circles. But like, if you're a politician, you have to spend your entire life from, say, I don't know, university days, grinding it out in all of those branch meetings, figuring out the political ecosphere. And like, yeah, they're very smart at maneuvering their way through that system. But that's a very specific skill set that is not applicable to virtually everything else. And so then they leave, they had all this power, they had all these connections. All of a sudden, it's really sad. Like one of our opposition leaders at the moment, unemployed, has been for 2 years. It's just like, this was a very accomplished intelligent woman that has like no employment prospects anymore. But because she's a good person, she's not doing anything dodgy with it. But you can if you are a dodgy person, it's very easy for you, like John Barilaro, to sit there and say, like recently there was that footage of him beating up a cameraman. And he was saying, I can't face court because of my mental health. It's always his call card every time. Mental health.
yeah.
I've got depression, you know? Yeah.
Well, you fuck in his rooms, Jordan. What do you expect?
He will never let it go, too. That weighs on him every day, I promise.
It's insane. Thinking about that actually now, I can see why that's so disturbing. Like if my schoolyard bully came and fucked in my house, I would be livid. That would be the most disturbing that's ever happened in my life up to that point. You're a sick man, Jordan.
No, you're right,
How dare
actually,
you do
Jackson.
that to
No,
him?
that is fucked. You're right. I never thought of it that way.
No, continue.
Yeah, but yeah, if it, like with him, for instance, okay, so his trade commissioner job got completely destroyed, and again, the only reason it got destroyed is because once he's no longer useful to the press ecosystem, because for 10 years he's not corrupt. How dare you say he's corrupt? I'm going to sue you. How dare FriendlyJordies say that? Then 2 weeks later, all of a sudden, hey, he's got this job that he qualified for himself that pays $500,000 a year. Who'd have thought? But that failed. And so on that day that he's saying, I can't face court for beating up this cameraman, I'm the true victim here because my feelings hurt, not this man whose back has been permanently misaligned and can't work for the rest of his life. It's me, John Barilaro. Permanent victim, quote unquote, also said this, I'm the unluckiest man in New South Wales politics. He's got the biggest victim complex you could imagine. But anyway, on that day, he's also applying to Clubs New South Wales, so that's the gambling peak body that we were talking about before. He's applying to that to be their next CEO on the same day. He's mentally unfit to face any punishment whatsoever, but he's ready to go with one of the most stressful jobs in the country. He's fine for that. He's absolutely fine. But that's what happens when you don't give politicians a pension. Really, they're just going to move into lobbying groups because that's really just their only employment prospect after they leave
I'll be honest
office.
with you. I think they would still do that even if you did pay them.
Yeah, I think there's
I have zero.
both as an option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you were giving, because those jobs are about what, like 300, 400,000 a year. If you were giving out those pensions of 300, 400,000 a year, why would you
depends
bother?
on
You
the
just
job.
sit on your
I mean-
ass, right?
I don't know if American politicians get pensions, but they do get a salary. Let's take the president, who I think gets like 400,000 a year, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
400K.
Obama was president 8 years. 8 times
Yeah.
400,000 is not $70 million, which is his net worth. And sometimes you'll have these politicians who were filthy wealthy to begin with. So I feel like it should be either or.
But
If you're
that's
going to be in the
definitely-
private sector, no taxpayer should pay a single cent to your pension or anything or your salary. Fuck off. But if you're
Well,
completely unemployed, then I would understand.
I think, look, it's not going to be a perfect system, absolutely. Like, they'll definitely, and, you know, if you're a president of the United States, I mean, you can make a speech for $1 million. Like, but if you're just some, like, no-hoper bum that no one's ever heard, you know, some member of Iowa or something like that, I think you could probably coax them out of going into these jobs that are extremely damaging to the public. Like,
Yeah, you could be right.
when you get into, like, it's again, it's not going to stop it entirely. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I
But
think
it's
it's
an out.
optimistic.
It's an out. There's
I
something
think
there.
I think that's just really optimistic. I think most people in politics, like they would get the free money and then they would want more. I assume they would spend their time
Yeah.
then.
I think
think
the
you're right.
only
Yeah, that's
surefire
definitely true, yeah.
solution would be like if during their actual service, their tenure, we pay them insane amounts of money, a life of luxury, and then when they retire, we retire them with the death penalty, just to make sure that he cannot be corrupt.
But like again, like I don't want to say this because like, you know, there are obviously a lot of politicians that go in there to build a better world and then they don't go into lobbying, and they're extremely smart people a lot of the time. And, you know, if they chose a different path in life, they could absolutely be ranking it in as some, you know, evil corporate lawyer, or they're definitely smart enough for that, you know, like they could go into that. Sorry, it's just I always need to make that one point because like I really don't want to just spread the whole idea that like everyone in the
politicians are bad.
system is like corrupt
You
and they're all
you
in
are
on
far
it.
more charitable than the rest of us, especially in your position.
Well, it's just because like I've been there. Like I know that like, you know, along the way there has been lawyers and there's been politicians, and this is the one that I'm really reticent to admit, journalists, not in the mainstream press, but independent ones. They've risked a lot for me. They didn't have to. It'd be a lot easier for them to just shut their mouth, go along, pretend it's not happening. But, you know, like the opposition...
Yeah, I'm sure there are good ones.
Well, yeah, definitely, right? Like it's... Because I think the whole thing with... It's probably the same... This is what I think when people always say it about like the police, or they say it about the military, or any position of power. It's obviously going to attract... Hollywood as well is a good example, right? It's obviously going to attract a lot of psychopaths because there is power there. But there's still... It's just like a disproportionate package in comparison to the rest of society. So, but there's still...
That's the issue. It's disproportionate. Like in your Hollywood example, for every like one Keanu Reeves, there's 100 Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah,
You and the fucking Jerry Seinfeld.
I'm sure there's like one fresh
Why is he the
F word
enemy of this
spoiled
podcast?
bunch, but I don't know.
But you know, like it's just I don't know. Like the world is a better place because human beings got together and started like hammering these things out in Parliament instead of just staying in caveman tribes and chucking spears at each other. Like it is a system that has gotten results, and I think that when you go back and you look at the world, like people complain a lot about their time, and they're always just like, "Oh, this is fucked" and all this kind of stuff. But it's like, dude, imagine living 100 years ago. Like, imagine our lives, all four of us, all five of us, 100 years ago. We'd be shoeshine boys. We'd be fucking dead by now.
Hey, I have a lot of actionable skills outside of podcasting.
Basketball.
Such as shoeshining.
Yeah, no, you're completely correct. But progress doesn't stop, right? You don't.
No, it doesn't
just
stop.
'cause-
I think it's just important to remember that there are people in these systems for the right reasons, and they are pushing to build a better world. And it's like, I feel like you should give credit where it's due. And also, it's
I agree.
It's
It's just
good
so hard.
to
It's so hard to figure out who the good people are. Like it takes effort.
Yes, that's definitely true. Especially because they usually are the ones that aren't in control of the press and aren't in cahoots, and they usually don't get the profile.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just
I
like
know the solution to
it's
that.
a very thankless job. I think a lot of the time, people's media idea of like how these things work is always very skewed by media, and it's just like they get their idea of it. So like, you know, a lot of people might think that it's like cyberpunk and stuff, and there's elements of that. I think actually the fairest depiction of how these institutions kind of function actually really is The Wire. Like, The Wire was so perfect at like, you know, things kind of just create this kind of like, it's like a runaway system. Things start just compounding on each other, and there's all these competing interests. And like, you know, if you're the mayor of something and you're just like, okay, like I'm going to be tough on crime, I'm putting more money in cops, and then there's just like, well, what the fuck about the education budget? And it's just like, fuck, you know, like like it's stressful. Like if you're even if you're in there for the right reasons, like your hand is forced a lot of the times because of all these competing interests.
Yeah, and at the same time, you've got other forces working against you. You've got public opinion, you've got other politicians, you've got corporate interests and stuff like that. There's like a million different things working against you. And you're not going to win over everyone at the end of the day, right? Even if you do the best job in the world, you're like completely altruistic, like you do what you set out to do. There are always going to be those people that don't like you in that situation as well.
Everyone's got haters. Every public figure, no matter how beloved and how righteous, is going to have haters, no matter what.
That's just being in the public, right?
Yeah.
That's being in the public, and actually, as Jackson pointed out, yes, there is a lot of nefarious, well-funded forces, because this is immediately the
Jerry
first thing that you
Seinfeld.
figure out. Jerry Seinfeld, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you exposed him, Jackson.
Yeah, that was very
It's
brave.
about time.
We're going to be step
It's about
one in
time,
a
really.
chain of horrible, horrible evidence coming out. You guys, you wait and see. It's going to happen.
I just want to specify though that I'm only operating on information that Jordan has passed on to me. So if any lawsuits come of this or anything like that, direct them at Jordan, please. He's well versed. He'll be able to take care of that. Should be fine. So before we wrap up here, because we've been going for a while, about an hour and a half. What I wanted to ask you, as someone who gets his information about Australia entirely from you, Jordan, what is the thing I should be most concerned or scared about within Australia in terms of like where the country is heading?
Good question.
Because you've exposed a lot of different things. Like again, I think it's mandatory watching for most Australians. I would say to watch your wartime podcast video, most recent one. Like I actually showed my girlfriend that, and we were both just blown away by how prevalent war crimes are within our military side of everything, and like just how blasé I guess they are, how open they are about it, like setting up entire podcasts to talk about the war crimes they've committed as if it's like entertainment. It was absolutely insane. Charlie, have you seen that?
I haven't finished it yet. I've started it, but I haven't finished the episode yet.
You should absolutely
watched the war crimes
complete
one.
it. It was like
What's
I don't know.
absurd about that entire debacle to me is at no point does any party involved ever stop and think, maybe I shouldn't publicly record my admission
Exactly.
to war crimes.
100%. That's what shocked both of us as well.
It's confident, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
they just don't even
shows-
care. They don't even like think of it as an incident. It's just a thing that happened.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that must be an example or proof of how like prevalent it is, right? If they don't care that much about talking about it publicly, it's because they're exposed to it on such an astronomically imperceivable level that it's so common that it doesn't even register that this is a bad thing to them, right?
Yeah,
It has
well,
to be.
yes, it's, I know the press are always saying this about the internet, that everyone just goes off into their own little bubbles and then that becomes reality. But yes, that is their reality. And it's amazing that they're not doing it on one of these like hidden little chat threads or something like that. It's just like out on Facebook, just being like, just killed
this was
4
a Spotify
civilians
podcast.
today, new high score. It's
Yeah,
like, whoa.
and it's not even like it's leaked or it's within certain bubbles. It's not like a small group Facebook conversation or a niche
thing, yeah.
market on YouTube
Well-
or something. These are podcasts that they just throw on
Spotify.
Yeah,
fucking
so,
Spotify for anyone to listen to.
I wasn't surprised at all that it exists. This is super prevalent right now. People film their crimes all the time for clout. Like, look at TikTok, like
Yeah.
the Kia challenge where you literally just steal a fucking car for TikTok clout. I'm just, I'm not shocked that it exists at all. It's horrifying, but I'm not surprised by it.
I think this is on a completely different level because it's a government body, right? This is
But
meant
it's
to
still
be
just people.
highly.
It's
So
still-
the
it's still
difference,
people.
It
though,
is.
the difference though is that it's the severity of what's being committed here. On TikTok, for the most part, you have crimes that they can be resolved. Like, oh, he stole my car. Okay, I'll give it back. Oh, he beat him up. Like, that's bad. But these are soldiers admitting, yeah, I saw 2 Afghan guys on a bike and I just gunned them down and they're fucking dead. And there's a whole international incident with it. Oopsie daisy. Ha 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 ha.
Not only Afghan people, Afghan police, like
right.
people ostensibly on our side,
Yeah.
and they gun them down and then have the goal to lie about facts regarding it, and then they talk about how they conspired to lie about the facts on this podcast, basically,
Yeah.
and how the report is full of incorrect information based on their lies, and now they're just talking about on a podcast admitting not only to that crime of killing 2 innocent Afghan police, but also of conspiring to lie
Yeah,
against
and the difference,
what is basically the Australian public.
like it's
insane.
totally fucking stupid how many people will go on social media and just record and show and talk about crimes. That in itself is just super dumb people being stupid.
it's dumb.
But the difference is, like, you don't have murderers on TikTok going, watch me stab this woman in the throat. Or if you do, that's an extremely very, that
thing.
hasn't been found and reported yet. Whereas this podcast and other things like it are just stories of, hey, tell us about the time you killed that dude. You know?
Are you guys familiar with prison talk?
Well, prison talk
isn't
completely
public
different.
like that, though.
Yeah, and they're already in jail.
Yeah.
they've been
Yeah, prison talk
criminalized.
originates in prison. That's the difference. Yeah.
What's so interesting about this guy is these people are so like I said, blasé. Like they're just so open with their crimes because they don't face
They're so
any
open
punishment.
because this does happen a lot. I mean, are you really surprised that war crimes are a thing and that soldiers really don't?
No,
give a
I'm not
shit? This has
surprised
been
war
happening for
crimes are a
decades.
thing.
I
No,
remember
I think the
when-
same
not
thing, Kai.
surprised
Like, I
war
actually do
crimes-
agree with that. Like, I'm not surprised war crimes exist. What I was surprised by is
how brazen they are.
how they're covered. Yeah, like,
Yes.
but also
Yeah.
just how they're like covered up by the higher apparatus. Like, you know, the insane thing about this situation is because it's exactly the same thing. I'm like, yeah, okay, war crimes exist, and also it's a war. Like, it's
Or
not
accidents in war happen, right? Like
yeah, all the time, right? Obviously, right? Like it's not an ideal situation, let's put it that way. But what is insane in this scenario is you have David McBride, who is doing what he's supposed to do. Report the war crimes. What he's legally supposed to do. And he is the one getting punished. He's the one getting dragged through the courts where they're making up all these new insane stretches of the law so that they can prosecute him for this. And then these guys are just openly bragging about these horrific crimes. Like, really... Like, just there's
the
malice
government-
behind it as well. It's not just like I'm accidentally killing someone. Like, a lot of the time it's like, no, we're killing civilians on purpose. Fuck them, you know. And then
and then planting evidence on their bodies to justify
Yeah.
it.
What was the,
It's like a
bragging
fucking
about it,
Dave
and then
Chappelle joke.
they don't get any punishment at all. They just it's completely covered up. And so my whole
covered
thing
up.
is just
wasn't
like,
there
look,
wasn't there a very similar story of an Australian war hero who was like loved by the press and everyone was like, oh, he's doing a great job and he's running these operations and he's a great guy, and then they found out that he like body slammed a disabled man and then shot him 9 times while he was on the floor?
Yes, you must be talking about Ned Kelly.
No, he's
it
right.
Jerry
Now,
Seinfeld?
sorry, it's earlier in the morning and I've forgotten. Like, but yeah, the name is. I'm amazed that you know that. That is very
Yeah, that is
detailed.
I don't know. What
I
he's
did
talking
my
about.
homework.
Who is he talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Let me see if I can
incredible.
find
But
the
yes,
name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ned
I
Kelly.
can't believe I've forgotten it.
Let's see
Well,
here.
Jordan, you were about to say something though. I wanted to hear what you were about to say.
About what? What was I going to say?
Fuck, I don't know.
Ben
Really dropped
Robert
it. No.
Smith is who I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that was him. Now, this is a recurring thing that happens in the upper apparatus of the U.S. military. Because, like, as McBride was saying about how the military operated when they were in Afghanistan was the entire time they knew they were losing the war. Because it's that same thing all the time. It's like once you're an invading force and you are trying to occupy, like if you do not win the hearts and minds of the public, you're just slowly going to get eaten away by attrition. I mean, it's just fucking Dune, isn't it? It's like the movie Dune. That was Afghanistan. And so, like...
Yeah, I remember the sandworms of Afghanistan. They were a big problem.
Hey, that's nothing to joke about, okay? That was terrible.
That's true. There's a podcast where I could talk all about it and laugh.
But yeah, like that's what was happening throughout the entire time. So really, what generals' jobs became, it's probably the same in the US, but in an Australian sense, was to just they just turned into really PR consultants. There was very little strategy that was happening there. They were mostly just thinking about how they could sell it to the public that they were winning. That was the main aim for at least 10 years of it. And so what it doesn't show that you're winning very quickly is war crimes. So they would be hiding them all the time, trying to excuse anything that they possibly could, just to keep any attention away from what was happening over there. So it's like built that culture in to the military system. And on top of that, it's just like, you know, if you're a brass general or something and you covered up war crimes, it's not going to look good on your resume, is it? So yeah,
It's not going to look
that's
good
what
in
happened
your
there.
government in general. Yeah, I mean, the government hates no one more than somebody who rocks the boats. You know, whistleblowers.
Yes.
Shut the fuck
Yeah,
up.
it's
about it.
dangerous. Yeah. And so yeah, that's how like these huge apparatuses, when It's just a thing of like, you know, I just really don't like that conspiracy theory argument, as I was saying before, that like huge apparatuses do cover up atrocious things all the time. I think,
easily.
yeah, you should just be aware of that, you know? Yeah, like, and everyone's in on it. Everyone just shuts up about it. These things do happen.
And then if they don't, they get made an example of. Again, look at Edward Snowden and the fucking information he shared in 2013. What was his thanks for being a patriot? An actual patriot, but branded a traitor because he sided with the American people instead of the American government. And now he lives in exile with death threats looming over his head.
Yes.
That's what happens. So, yeah, you are disincentivized to rock the boat.
Massively.
I mean, when you're a whistleblower, you're going up against these enormous institutions and you have no real recourse of winning over people's opinions. Whereas, like in many cases, they have the media working on their side, the public interest and stuff like that working on their side. You are a drop in the ocean, essentially. And that's why whistleblowing is just so insane to me that it even happens, because it flies in the face of any kind of self-preservation, really.
It is actually one of the few
It takes a remarkable person.
Yeah. It takes an actual hero. It's
100%.
one of the very few things that still make you a hero. You get no
And
reward.
these are... Absolutely. Like, you do meet these people like Troy Stolz and David McBride, and it is remarkable how selfless these people are, and they're kind of like good-humoured in the face of the very serious circumstances that they're in. You do get the feeling very quickly when you meet them that is a very special human being. I suppose it's almost like the exact opposite of, like, you know, there's a bunch of psychopaths in there. I remember once reading this stat about the military, and they were saying that you know, obviously they try and get psychopaths into the military because that's the best person that you'd want in warfare. But there is another type of person that's kind of like an opposite psychopath that sees their platoon or whatever like getting under enemy fire, and when they're in that situation, they'll do truly heroic things to try and protect the platoon, and they try and attract that person as well. It really is like a real yin and yang of humanity, whistleblowers, and then those people, you know, bragging about killing people on Facebook.
Well, it's not like... I get it, because you're trying to attract the largest pool possible, but in an ideal situation, you'd only want the people in the second category, right?
Well, there's also... I do actually understand the logic behind it. It's like, these are dangerous human beings. There's just that certain population of human being, and they even admit it in this video when they're talking about bragging about killing people and stuff. They say at some point, you know, like, hey, this podcast is just to let you know that you like violence and that's okay. So in their mind, it's not about... They're not going overseas to, you know, spread democracy, defend their country. It's none of that. It's just... I like shooting guns and killing people. Like, I like doing that, and I want an excuse to do it.
Yeah, I believe that, like, the message with that was, hey, everyone listening who's you know, an ex-soldier or whatever, a veteran, go over and fight in the Ukraine war because you like violence and that's okay.
Yes.
I think that was the message with that.
That was it. And so it does make sense, until Minority Report exists, I guess, to just pick these people off that are like... I don't know if you guys have ever met someone like that before, where you just kind of shake their hand and you're like, this guy could kill someone. You know?
Every time I shake Charlie's hand, I think that.
Yeah.
No, you don't.
I'm a weapon out there. You got to be careful.
Have you guys ever actually shaken anyone's hands who you think could legitimately kill someone?
Yeah, fuck yeah, I've done it, for sure.
I know you have. You're daily at this point.
I don't know if I've ever shook someone's hand and was like, yeah, this guy could absolutely murder another human being and take their life or anything.
All right, let's move it back from there. Have you ever talked to someone for a while and been like, something's a bit off about them? Does that ever happen to you guys? Like, is that...
Well, I have shaken the hands of someone who I legitimately think could or has potentially killed people. Like one of my friends his dad was it or is, I'm not sure actually if he still is, but he was a biker. So like I think that's a possibility for sure.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So I have. What about the American guys?
Yeah.
I actually have the opposite issue where I'm terrible at recognizing that, where I've had friends where I thought, oh, that's a great guy. He's a really nice dude. And then later they'll just be arrested for really terrible things. Like say, oh,
really?
Fuck. Yeah.
Do you have any examples that you'd be willing to share?
I don't know how much details I want to give, but I was in a D&D group for a while, Dungeons and Dragons, and it was I like how the concept of just playing D&D is funny, but it was a just normal group of dudes, some nerdy folks, just talk about video games and fucking shows and bullshit, and just hanging out and play the game, whatever. And our DM, the leader of the game, was like a nice dude, just friendly. I hung out at his apartment a few times, played some games, went out to hang out with get a beer, whatever. And we stopped playing, and about 3 or 4 months after the group kind of stopped getting together, he got arrested for having sex with an underage girl. And just had absolutely no idea. There were no signs. There was nothing about him. Nothing he said in conversation. Nothing he did when he acted. Nothing.
You didn't notice you were playing D&D with Jerry Seinfeld? How's that possible?
But it just came completely out of nowhere. I just had absolutely no idea. I only found out about it later through the grapevine and was fucking shocked.
It's interesting that you had a situation in D&D, because one of the only few times where someone like I met or knew did some like weird, goofy, like not good shit is D&D. I've only played one real campaign, and my DM was Arcadum. You know the guy?
Oh yeah.
Right. And he did a lot of weird shit.
If you play D&D,
did you know him specifically though?
If you play Dungeons and Dragons out there, be wary of your dungeon master, is what we're saying. They're some bad people.
I mean, Arcadum
D&D is a dangerous game.
Didn't he just talk shit online? Did he actually do something?
No, he was like he was a
stuff.
weirdo. No, he was a weirdo.
Okay, I thought he was just LARPing as an anime antagonist. I didn't know he...
No, that's just like the most infamous clip about like imagine the devastation I could cause if I was a little different and gone down a different path that wasn't D&D and showing people the light. Yeah.
Jeez.
What about you, Kaya? I'm sure you've met some people.
Kaya told the story about how one of his friends is like an actual terrorist, right?
Oh,
or
his
his
uncle.
dad.
No,
Yeah,
but my
uncle, that's
friend,
what it was.
he went down the fucking incel hateful pipeline, but I don't think he could like kill somebody or hurt somebody otherwise.
So you've never met someone that you would say could kill someone?
Not to my knowledge.
Wow, that's surprising. It's
I
the
don't
most
know.
surprising thing of this episode.
I hang out with nice people.
Fair enough. And just to bring it full circle, Jordan, I'm sure you have, but can you think of anyone off the top of your head that was the most insane?
Very unrelated to all of this, there was a lawyer. Oh God, I'm gonna have to be really careful about this. But there was a lawyer that was the go-to guy. You know, like in The Wire, there's that guy that looks kind of like George Costanza that all the gangs go to, and he's just like, just shut the fuck up and don't tell the cops anything. That guy, right? Like, he was that guy. He was that guy. He was that guy for like bikies and stuff here, and. Again, it's that level of evil genius. He was just constructing a legal network that I can't get into that was, truly phenomenal in like how it operated. Met him once, had the exact same feeling as this other person that I was acquainted with at the time, that was also a lawyer. And I remember both of us, after we just briefly talked to him, just looking at each other afterwards and just being like, that guy doesn't have a soul, hey? And we're just like, yeah, fuck, that was something else. That guy was the scariest human being I'd ever known about. And at that point, it was kind of just like, just day-to-day scandal and stuff like that. And then that whole big network thing came out a lot longer. I think there are certain people that you meet and you just like, no, they're just the aura is just, it's just like, something's not functioning in their head, right? Like or something's like shutting off in their head. There's some, it's not like meeting most people, but anyway, like I think that's the whole thing about militaries, and they do suck these people up, and if there isn't a war on, they kind of just keep them safely in barracks and give them something to be violent about. Like it kind of does channel it away from society.
I've never really thought about militaries in that way. Like I guess I've always been optimistic in the hope that the people protecting the country or operating throughout the military are good people, not doing great acts of violence for their own enjoyment. I guess that's just kind of been how I've operated, but it would make sense if the military does try to find people who do enjoy it to some degree. And while that's concerning, I think you make a good point that keeping them removed from society might be a good thing. I mean, eventually they have to come back though, right? And we haven't really done anything to treat the underlying issue there. We've really only encouraged it.
Well, yeah, but generally these kind of people, they're lifers, right? It's the same as just people that keep wanting to get arrested to go back into prison because that's the life they know. Those people generally do stay in the military. But yes, they can just walk out and then they have much worse tools under their belt. There's another actual crime instance of that in Australia of a guy that was just like at our high version of Navy SEALs. And yeah, dude, like he just went immediately into the underworld and became their go-to guy and was like a ruthlessly efficient killer. So yes, that can happen. Yeah.
Yeah, that's insane. This all started because I asked what I should be scared of in Australia, and I don't feel like I've got an answer yet. We kind of like tangentially went off into war crimes and stuff. So did you have an answer for what I should be most concerned about for Australia's future?
I think it's it's actually similar. Yeah, well, it's similar to globally. I think it's what you should be really scared about, which is look.
I like being scared. All right, let's hear it.
Globalization as a general concept has been, obviously there's been great advantages because of economics and trade and whatnot. Something that has been a huge downside of it, however, is in most developed democracies, there usually is one party that represents organised labour, and then there's one party that represents the business community, or capital, I suppose. That's usually the divide in most politics. That's still the case to this day. However, capital, because it is now truly global, is now representing interests that are completely foreign. So, when we're talking about someone like John Barilaro, the big crime about someone like him is just like, how the fuck is... Because he's supposed to be representing rural New South Wales. This man that lives in Sydney Harbour... has Kim Kardashian Botox lips, carries around a man bag, flies on a private jet, like the most urbane man I've ever seen in my life, has his little macchiato coffees in the morning, and that's supposed to be the man on the land. That would not have happened, 30 or 40 years ago. The reason it has happened now is because and it's the same reason. It's just like, I mean, look, we can talk about it. It's very interesting when you talk about individual criminals and crime and all that kind of stuff. But the real crimes that are happening here is massive, massive environmental crimes that just permanently shifted like river systems that have been running the same way for tens of millions of years. And because you have representatives like John Barilaro that are just rubber stamping all of these cotton farms that are just absolutely draining water, which is so scarce in Australia, where you have these huge cotton farms owned by multinational companies that they just sit at the very top of that river. They suck all the water out of it, and then there's no water for the rest of the farmers, no water for the rest of the environment. That's why we have yearly fish kills here now, towns without water, and in years of drought as well, this happens, right? Like, that has just completely shifted water in this country. That's terrifying. Land clearing rates up there with Brazil under
Yeah, Brazil,
Bolsonaro.
right, yeah.
Brazil level land clearing in a developed country. Pesticide sprays. Pesticides that have been banned in the US since the 50s. And it's not like the US is a leader in banning pesticides. Actually, the EU is the leader in it. They're not perfect on it by any stretch, but like they're doing leaps and bounds over what Australia is. But like things that were banned because of that book Silent Spring, if you guys have ever heard of it, of just like, just completely fucking ecosystems entirely, that going into the water, killing all the fish, increasing rates of, terminal diseases in communities, killing off all the insects, killing off native plants, like just destroying ecosystems, right? That's not banned. All of these things were controlled when it was under a Labor government because Labor is still represented by Labor. So like, unions, so you've still got connections to the community and workers that they're representing there. So there was regulations on these things.
Yeah.
There was regulations on these things. As soon as you go to the Liberals and Nationals now, look, it's very evident when you go out to rural New South Wales, you look at all the farmland, it's basically just run by robots at this point. There is no man on the land anymore. It's basically a myth. It's run by, mostly, massive multinational companies that have just bought up all the land, make it run these alien entities like cotton, completely suck the environment from it. And that's how people like John Barilaro, who has clearly no connection whatsoever to rural Australia, but he's the leader, or the common man in general, but he's the leader of, the battler in the bush. It's because there is no battler in the bush anymore. They've all been pushed out. Now, before, there was always, like in every country, there's always like your local gentry. There is what we call in Australia bunyip aristocrats, the people that own the land there before, but at least they had a connection to Australia. When Australia and its resources and its land just becomes a balance sheet on some company that exists in fucking Brazil or Hong Kong or Berlin or whatever, they don't give a shit, none. And so now, and it's exactly the same with the Liberals and just approving all these developments in Sydney of now 90% of apartments in Sydney have like serious defects in them because they're just not having any regulation on it whatsoever. Just slap them up as quickly as you can. Massively overpriced
We see that
apartments.
in America as well.
I'm sure you would. I'm sure you would.
Charlie sees this in America as well. He's currently going through a phase of not wanting to ever drive over a bridge because of how horribly they are repaired.
That was a big topic of our episode last time.
Yeah, they don't. What is it? They don't inspect their infrastructure or bridges anymore. We've seen it with the
they recognize that the majority of bridges right now would fail an inspection. So instead of fixing it, they've just stopped doing inspections so they won't fail it.
Mm-hmm. Damn.
Yeah,
well, it's a cheat code. I'll give him that.
We get these cracks in the bridges and the infrastructure, and their whole job is to look at those cracks and go, are they wide and big enough that this bridge might collapse? I don't know. Instead of actually doing something about it.
I think that's how,
infrastructure is
pervasive across all governments now, right?
Well, no, because this is why I'm saying, don't get despondent about this, because when you go and look at the nitty-gritty of it, like in Australia, I can't speak for America, but in Australia, like the Australian Labor Party, everything that you can accredit, like Medicare, all these regulations on these pesticides and like making sure that the rivers are running, like huge infrastructure projects that built this country, it is all attributed to them because they are funded by workers instead of companies. But back in the day, and this is the credit that I would give the Liberals and Nationals back in the day, is that at least those companies were Australian. At least those big, wealthy investors were Australian. So they still had a stake in the country. Like, okay, I'll give you the classic example. The reason that our last Labor government was ousted was because he wanted to start taxing our resources because they're ours. So maybe that money should be going to the public that owns those resources. That was what he wanted to do. And massive multinational companies own all of our mines. And so they were just like, fuck you. They didn't even give him a single term. He was cooed. He was replaced with another prime minister. And that was the reason that happened. And it's again because, but who was the one mining magnate that was backing it and saying, yeah, paying a certain amount of tax instead of all of that money going overseas, going into the public coffers is a good idea? It was the one Australian mining magnate. All the other mining magnates from other countries were just like, fuck you, that's interfering with my profit margin, get rid of your prime minister. You know?
Yeah,
That's the divide that we're experiencing now. So it's just like, it's back in the day, capital used to be a lot more friendly because it was within the country and they could see the effects of it eroding their country. But if you never even visit the country, like, you don't care at all. And so that's
a really good point.
Yes, that's what I think you should be terrified of, is just that...
Is other countries.
Yeah, other countries. That's exactly it. Just close off the
That's what I took
borders.
from that. Let's close the borders.
And that's why COVID was the best time in human history.
Yeah.
Well said.
No,
I think that is like a really good point, though. 100%.
yeah, it's just like, I like, there is a real nastiness that the Australian public saw in the last Liberal National government federally, like when there was the bushfires happening here and our Prime Minister just fucked off and went on vacation while Rome was burning. Not even Rome, the entire country was on fire. He
Yeah,
just
the
left.
entire East Coast was on fire, and he's like off in Hawaii, basically.
Yep.
Doing business.
living it up.
Jackson.
Yeah, that's
Business.
fine.
Yeah.
Came back
Would
and they
you
said, how about...
want to be in the country if it was on fire?
True.
I didn't think so.
True. He needed a calm environment to handle the crisis, so he went to Hawaii.
Which was his excuse. That's what he said. I can
Oh my
think
God.
better here.
Oh my god.
Well, he could. I mean, it's hard
No,
to think when shit's
the
on fire.
country was on
Are
fire.
there fires
Would
now,
you
Jordan?
want to be
Are
there?
there fires now? He solved it. This is something that Charlie always gives Australia shit for, rightfully so, honestly. I don't really have a rebuttal for it whenever he brings it up. But whenever we talk about, whenever I talk about how great Australia is to live in, and I still do think that I still would probably rather live in Australia than anywhere else on the planet, honestly. Personally, I don't know if you feel the same, Jordan, but that's how I feel.
Japan has its merits, but yeah.
Well, Japan's cool, but I don't know if I would want to live there necessarily. But
Fair.
with all the Yakuza around and such. He's always, so Charlie always talks about how we are basically like killing the Great Barrier Reef, one of our biggest national heritages, like one of the most iconic things about Australia, and we are just ripping it to shreds and poisoning it and killing it for no apparent reason to him.
Well, damn, good on you, Charlie. I'm glad that you're bringing attention to that, because that's a huge crime.
100%.
It's so
It is.
heartbreaking.
It's a crime against every Australian.
Well, it's also a crime
our
that has. I can't even. I can't find a single reason. It's just like they're waging war on the Great Barrier Reef for no cause. It's like a personal grudge. Like he cut his foot on the coral there or something, and now all of a sudden the government has to take it down. Like for years.
with mining, right?
No, like I've been trying to figure out exactly like what the purpose is, and I can't find any like conclusive. Maybe Jordan knows more than I do, but from everything I've read, like they don't have a legitimate reason other than just wanting that land, like the space of where the Great Barrier Reef is. But it's not like they're gonna build fucking Rapture there or anything like BioShock. So I don't really get it.
Well, it's just the same. It's similar. Well, okay, look, 60% of the destruction is just climate change, and the Great Barrier Reef will just go. But like, there's
But we can make
elements of
the
it
other
that will stay
40%
intact.
us.
Yes, and we are. Proudly. Well, no, see, this is again the same thing. Is like when the Liberals and Nationals were in Queensland, which is their that state, they
My state.
approved your state. They approved levels of land clearing like we have in New South Wales, again, that rival Brazil. That is especially bad in Queensland because all of the runoff of all this dirt goes immediately into the Great Barrier Reef from all of the freshwater systems. It just gets dumped into the Great Barrier Reef soil. That soil starts growing a Japanese introduced species, actually, which is the crown of thorn starfish, or somewhere in Asia.
I've spoken about the crown of thorns on the podcast at some point. It's like a plague, essentially. There's no easy way to kill it, right? If you cut it up, it just spreads into a whole bunch of other different.
It's an
crown of
alien.
thorn.
It's an
Yeah,
alien
it
from a
is
sci-fi
creepy.
film. It's scary. But it thrives. It thrives off of poor water quality, which is all of that runoff into the soil. Like that's fucking the Great Barrier Reef up. And it is again a deliberate decision of the Liberals and Nationals to relax regulation on land clearing. That was the effect of that. They also approved huge docks all along the Great Barrier Reef that, again, were protected under a Labor government. But it was a deliberate decision of the Liberals and Nationals to approve these huge megaports that just have massive ship barges going across the Great Barrier Reef all the time. These are things that could be easily preventable. The other thing as well, we don't have the money. They say it costs $1 billion a year to keep the Great Barrier Reef healthy in like the best that we can given climate change. No, we don't have the money for that. But they do have, you know, billions of dollars to give away to these mega farms that are sucking up all the water in terms of like tax handouts, tax write-offs. Oh, you want some infrastructure built for a road so it's easier for you to access the farm? Yeah, here you go. There's $1 billion for that. They absolutely have the money.
What about the money generated from all the fucking ports that you're building across the Great Barrier Reef? Surely that
could that go back into it? Maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
could it?
Jesus.
But no, it couldn't because again, what do the Liberals and Nationals do with those ports all the time? They fucking privatise them. They sell them off. They build them and then they sell them.
Yeah, that's basically, it sounds like what the Liberals are good at, is cutting up little slots of America or big slots of America and then selling them to private entities for a profit.
Absolutely.
And
so the reason the Great Barrier Reef is getting killed here is purely because they just don't give a fuck. They do not care. It's remarkable how little the Liberals and Nationals actually stand for anymore. It's gotten to that point where it's just like, do you have any convictions at all? They used to be the party of free speech. I mean, look at how they fucking behave to whistleblowers.
Yeah, agreed. It's insane. All right, I'm rightfully scared now. I'm going to have nightmares for a long while. Thank you, Jordan.
No worries, boys. Anytime.
Thanks for coming in here and bringing us back down to reality. Are you guys scared for me? You Americans and Germans?
You'll be fine.
I'm not afraid of anything ever.
Yeah, you'll be tough.
All right, sweet. That's good. Good to know. Jordan, thank you. It's been a fantastic episode. I feel like this might be an episode where I've learned the most anyway. It's been very interesting.
It's a top 10
Which
episode
is insane
for
because
sure.
you're in Australia. You should know
I
this.
needed to know the stuff about the place I'm living.
It's amazing that Charlie knows more about it than you. Like way more as well.
It's concerning. I mean, I think it is a thing with like my generation. I don't know how old you are, Jordan, but I'm 26, sorry. So I think it's a case that I've been raised off the internet, and the internet is primarily American content, or at least it was when I was growing up.
Absolutely.
So instead of watching 9 News or 10 or any other like mainstream media, I was on YouTube or American media in general. So that's where I got all of my information from. So I was just far more interested in that than I ever was with Australian politics.
That's definitely
fair. The Australian scene.
Well, it's definitely something that you... Like, it's better. Let's put it that way. Like, I'm much happier that people are getting their news from Charlie, despite the fact that he doesn't, you know, he's not here. So obviously he's not covering it all the time and stuff. But like the fact that he's giving his audience the tools to, you know, disseminate what they're seeing. And like being like, just think about it from this perspective and that kind of stuff that just wasn't available when I was growing up. And that's all you had was the mainstream press. Because to this day, when I get slammed in the papers, sometimes on a daily basis, I sit there and I'm like, well, the font looks all old-timey and it's in the paper. Maybe I am an asshole.
True.
Yeah. Like, it's just imprinted.
Well, it has that institutional prestige, right? This is what our parents believed in. This is what our grandparents believed in. It wouldn't still exist if it was bad, right? That's like that's the mindset.
Yeah.
There has to be some kind of validity to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, you guys need to go. Sorry, I'll let you go.
No. Thank you for coming on and educating me and sharing some goofs and laughs. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on again. Please let our audience know. I know where to find you. Let our audience know where they can find you so that they can also follow along with the zany saga you found yourself in.
FriendlyJordies.
Okay.
I don't know. That's yeah, dude. I'm not tech literate at all. That's how I find myself.
I'll let them know. So it's FriendlyJordies on YouTube. I'm pretty sure it's FriendlyJordies on Twitter as well. I'll put links in the description as well so you can go find him. If you've got... I know our audience is primarily American as well, but we do have some Australian people in our audience. So if you want to get an insight into Australia, like I have started, definitely add FriendlyJordies onto your list. I know most of my friends, Jordan, like most of my friends in my generation, they all watch you and they're enormous fans of you and such, and always following along with what you're doing. So I do think you're making an enormous difference on our culture, and that's, you know, I think that's worth so much. So thank you for that.
Well, tell them
watch.
thanks. That's very nice of them.
We'll do.
And every view counts when you're in a tiny market like Australia. So
yeah, 100%. Yeah, you've done a great job. That's it for this episode. Thank you very much for joining us at home. Patreon.com/theofficialpodcast for bonus episodes. If you want to hang out with us some more, we've got hundreds and hundreds of episodes of bonus content over there for you to listen to. That's patreon.com/theofficialpodcast. Otherwise, go watch FriendlyJordies and enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
bye.